right now.
Please silence your devices if you're not speaking at this time. Welcome to a public hearing held today, December 20th, 2021 of the Newark Central Planning Board under the Open Public Hearing Act of 1973, also known as the Sunshine Law. In accordance with the New Jersey Public Laws of 1975, Chapter 231, Section 5, adequate notice of the hearing has been provided by notifying the Newark Star Ledger and the Jersey Journal newspapers. Also, the schedule of regular hearings and conferences of the Newark Central Planning Board has been posted on the designated bulletin board in the basement of Newark City Hall and filed in the office of the city clerk during January 2021. In addition to adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Act, electronic notice of this remote public meeting, as is permitted by NJSA 10-4-9.3, was placed on the City of Newark website. Members of the public can make public comments by audio or by audio and video as permitted by the Zoom electronic communication platform. Now, while in this Zoom meeting, press on raise hand on the bottom left corner of the computer screen or mobile device. Raise hand allows participants to notify the host that they would like to speak without interrupting them. If you are calling in, press *9 on your telephone to raise your hand. The Central Planning Board will be mindful of the number of items on the agenda and will move as expeditiously as possible to complete the agenda. However, due to the amount of development requiring board review and the complexity of projects, it may not be possible to hear every item if the meeting runs later than 11 o'clock p.m. In the event that the agenda is not complete by 11 o'clock p.m. tonight, the board will finish hearing the application which is in process, but no new application will be called after that item is complete. Any applications that were not heard by that time will be rescheduled to the earliest available date, which will be announced on the record if possible. In addition to this adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Act, electronic notice of this remote public meeting as is permitted was placed on the City of Newark website. Pardon me, that's a repetition in the statement. Members of the public may, no. That was also a repetition again. So if you want to raise your hand, use the raise hand feature on your computer or your mobile device. And if you're dialing in, you can dial *9 to do the same. The meeting of the Central Planning Board will now come to order. Secretary, roll call, please.
Commissioner Good,
Here.
Commissioner Timmons,
Here.
Commissioner Purdy,
Present.
Commissioner James,
Here.
Acting Chair Richard,
Present.
Commissioner Amador, Commissioner Oliver, Commissioner Jordan, and Chair Richardson are absent today. Before we proceed, I just wanted to make a quick announcement. We have the last item on the agenda, which is an area and redevelopment study. At this time, the city will not be going forward with this item. The reason being that there are several, well, I guess we have been notified that there will be development applications for these properties. Some might just be improvements on the property. So the city does not wish to go forward with the blight study. Madam Chair, we can proceed with the rest of the agenda.
Thank you, Pallavi. So are we saying that this meeting will not, this item number 5 will not be heard at all, or it's being postponed?
No, it's not being postponed. It is being removed from the agenda. We will not hear this item in the future as well.
Thank you very much. All right, so we will proceed. The first item on this evening's agenda is CPB 21-56. The address is 81 through 93 Orange Street. Are the applicants available? If you're available, please raise your hand so that Ms. Shinde can bring you all in.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Mr. Murphy.
All right. It looks like we have my professionals in. Chairwoman, if I may, I'd get started.
All right. You can proceed. Mr. Souter, I see your message. If you can hold on, please. All right, you can proceed, Mr. Murphy.
Great. Thank you, Chairwoman. Members of the board, for the record, my name is Chris Murphy with the law firm of Murphy, Schiller, and Wilkes, here on behalf of applicant 81-93 Orange Street Investments, LLC. We're here tonight seeking preliminary and final site plan approval along with some bulk variance relief in order to permit the construction of a 14-story mixed-use building, which will contain 8,513 100 square feet of retail space, 350 residential units, 181 parking spaces, all within the Broad Street Station Redevelopment Plan Subdistrict A. I think what's important and notable, and will be highlighted in our presentation this evening, the applicant is proposing 20% on-site affordable for this project. So there will be 70 affordable units as part of this development, which is really just a wonderful development, as you'll see tonight. We have had 2 community meetings that were facilitated with the help of Councilwoman McIver. The first was on September 8th, 2021. The second was on October 7th, 2021. We heard some great feedback from the community and incorporated some of those comments into plans. We are in receipt of a planning report dated 12/15/2021, the engineering report dated 12/17/2021, traffic and signals report dated 12/16/2021, and a water and sewer report dated 12/20/2021. As a condition of approval, we will agree to comply with the recommended conditions stated in those letters. There might be some minor clarification that will be offered tonight during testimony, but we will be complying substantially with those comments. We have multiple professionals here to testify. The first will be our architect for the project, Jack Borman. Chair, if I could get him sworn in, we can get him qualified as an expert in the field of architecture and move forward with the presentation.
Certainly.
Thank you. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes.
Please state your name, your address, and your affiliation with this application.
My name is Jack Borman. I'm the managing partner at BKB Group, Architects and Engineers. We're located at 1054 31st Street Northwest in Washington, D.C.
Thank you. Counsel, you may qualify your witness.
Great. Thank you, Counselor. Mr. Borman, for the benefit of the board, can you please provide some information on your professional experience and educational background so we can get you qualified as an expert in the field of architecture?
Okay. I've been practicing for 42 years as a licensed architect and have had the privilege of working on projects in New Brunswick at the Rutgers campus, plus other possible projects that we've been looking at in New Jersey as well as Pennsylvania. I specialize in mixed-use urban housing, market rate housing projects with affordable components to them. Our firm has designed over 15,000 units of housing since 2004. And I have a practice doing these types of urban mixed-use housing projects throughout the Mid-Atlantic area, and look forward to working and providing an excellent piece of urban architecture, residential community, mixed use for your community.
Thank you. Are you currently licensed in New Jersey?
I am.
All right, your license is in good standing.
It is.
All right, you may proceed. You're accepted by the board.
Thank you. Thank you. Well,
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Jack, you've reviewed the plans that have been submitted to the board this evening?
I am the design partner who headed up the design effort on these plans. That's correct.
Perfect. So, so for the benefit of the board, we're going to share those plans. Tiago, our engineer, is going to share his screen. And Jack, I would just ask that you run the board through the presentation and show them this great development. Thank you.
Okay, this is a aerial insert of our design model in the site. The site's 36,684 square feet. It's about half of the block, and it is bounded by Orange Street, University, and Lackawanna. And basically, the overall context of the site, most importantly, is off of Lackawanna, is the rail line and the open space, and the overall fabric of the architecture along Broad Street. All of this was influential in us designing this new building for this site area. Next slide, please. The overall metrics of the project: 350 units, 165 parking spaces. The project is basically designed as three elements: a base podium building that includes retail and activated streetscape design elements, and then a podium structure, and then the amenity level at the top of the podium level, and then the upper building tower. So it's a collection of different building elements, and I can show those to you in the design. Next, please. Very important for the urban design features of this project are to reinforce the overall grid pattern of the city, as illustrated as you go down Broad Street, where all of the buildings are built up to the property line to reinforce the overall building street grid. At the same time, we're doing that on all three sides. The Lackawanna Avenue side, Lackawanna in and by itself is a one-block street. And then on the opposite side of our project, you have the open space and the LRT line. So we think that that open space with our building up to the property line provides a urban edge to help define the urban edges and perimeters of the overall open space, with the idea of other buildings being built on Broad Street and on the other side of University. We see this as an opportunity to help establish that overall urban form. At the lowest level, we have our 2 lanes of access off of Orange Street for parking. That's one way in. And then we have 2 lanes of exiting out off of Lackawanna. We also have another curb cut off of Lackawanna for our service area loading dock. We've separated those about 18 feet, so the curbs are separated so that a pedestrian could move across one curb cut and then wait if there's a vehicle coming, and then proceed across that curb cut to provide an island for pedestrian safety in relationship to the 2 curb cuts. We also have activated, very importantly, I think, the corner at Lackawanna and University. That's our main entrance profile element for the feature of the corner of the building. We do the same thing over on Orange Street and University to create these corner markers for the building to help sort of anchor the intersection in regards to the overall building design. So at this level, we have all of our retail with street activated storefronts and recesses for entry. We have our main access to the building lobby. All of these spaces are 20 feet high, and then we have service functions as they go towards Broad Street on Lackawanna. Okay, next slide, please. As we proceed up the building, this is our typical screened parking level. All of the parking is screened on all three public streets, so no parking is visible from the street. The next slide, please. As we go up the building, we start to add units into the podium, plus operating spaces. Next slide, please. Again, more units screening the parking and other operating space as well. Next, please.
Excuse me, I don't know if it's just me, but is anyone else not seeing the progression of the slides?
Oh, sorry.
It is progressing, Chair. I think that it might be one of those illusions because there's so minimal progression. And
They're very similar.
or it's one of those, you know, can you tell the difference things?
All right.
It's not a trick question. There are 4 floors. So, so this is the 5th floor, which is very important because the 5th floor is articulated separately with more glass, some unit recesses, and also a 5-foot recess off of Lackawanna that creates an outside terrace to overlook that future public space where the rail line is. And this is our primary amenity space that wraps around the outdoor pool deck and amenity space for the residents. And then the rest of the floor is housing units. But this is a very special floor. It's a little higher and it's articulated with more glass to create a, the 20-foot high streetscape is the 1st floor. And then we have the intermediate 3 floors that are wrapped with housing and function space. And then that's our podium. And then we articulate that 5th floor to create the base for the upper 10 floors. So that way we're articulating the building into 4 different distinct vertical elements that either connect to the street or begin at different levels in the podium. Next slide, please. This is our typical housing floor. Next slide, please. This is our top floor, which has a amenity club room at the top floor with an outdoor space looking back down Broad Street at the downtown area. And then next slide, please. These are our exterior elevations. This is our Lackawanna elevation that shows our housing. You can see the setback amenity floor that articulates the podium. You see the corner element that's glass that sort of anchors the intersection with university. Then we have these 2 center walls that are 2-story, are planned to be art walls that we would work with the local arts group to develop some wall murals. Then the rest of it is glass into our various function spaces. The ground floor, you see the one darker area is our access to parking and the other one is the loading dock. And then we have those screened with doors. And then you see the glass area for our ground floor entry at university. The upper area, you can see the articulation of balconies at the corner, the higher articulated top floor. So you can see the streetscape base, the intermediate floors, then the open floor at the 5th floor podium level, and then the transition of the 9 upper floors, and then the penthouse floor. So the building is really articulated into 4 different building masses to create variety and human scale for this 14-story building, which is important for us to recognize that it is a tall building. The materials are a combination of multiple neutral palettes of metal panel in the upper floors, then more glass and metal for the vertical towers, and then the lower base portion of the building, it's intended will have some accent brick and overall materials, some wood panels that work with the 5th floor accent areas, and at the inside wall of some of the balconies to add a combination of metal, wood, and decorative brick. Okay, next slide, please. This is moving around to, this is our University Avenue elevation. And again, you can see the highly glazed streetscape areas for at the street. And here again, we see both corner elements that feature the sort of strong anchor of the building design to these intersections. And then again, the articulation of the 5th floor, the 1st floor, the intermediate floors, and then the upper building. And then the top floor were articulated with wood and metal panels and glass, and the larger glass elements in the penthouse floor. So, and then there's intermediate balconies in the podium to, again, provide relief. And those have vertical or perpendicular wood panels on the inside of the balconies. Next, please. This is our Orange Street facade. And here again, it's very similar articulation of base, middle, and top for the overall building, with again a strong anchor on the corner. We see the one strong anchor as being our retail feature anchorage area with canopies and signage, really to activate that streetscape urban lifestyle that relates to canopies, lighting, signage, and high overall storefronts. Similar treatment over on the Lackawanna University side, where we'll have the similar access into our main lobby area for the housing. Next slide, please. This is the slide that's our party wall. And we've had a lot of good input from different parties as we've shared our design. And here we're showing how we've articulated the two end walls with multiple layers of paneling that are recessed, and then the center recessed balcony areas to help articulate the end of the building. So even though it's on a property line, it's artistically panelized and articulated to provide some interest for the upper portions of the building. Next slide, please. This is the section that just shows how the building stacks with the 1st floor, the base, the parking, and the upper levels. The very top floor sets back again to help articulate the top of the building with a terrace that runs around the 3 sides of the courtyard. Next, please. These are some of the standard unit plans that show that we've really worked out the building design in very deep detail, so that the exterior windows and elevations are exactly how we would expect them to be as the final designs are prepared. We spent a lot of time on the details, working out really very, very comfortable, very high quality urban unit plans for the residents. Next, please. This represents our artistic rendering of the project, showing the emphasized 20-foot high retail base elements. This is showing Orange Street and University Corner, and then the highly glazed corner element, and then the streetscape, the middle podium, and then the upper building area, and then the penthouse area. So we've really tried to layer the building so that its massing is articulated and refined, so that it adds interest and a timelessness of neutral materials, but a lot of overall articulation and balconies to, again, further articulate the design. Next, please. Just another view of the building. Next, please. This is an older, well, this is the view that shows the recessed panels. Here we were thinking of some wood panels there, but we've since moved to look at those 2 solid areas that have the brown color on them as our art mural walls that would relate to some of the arts work that's going on in some of the different buildings around us. But you can see the articulation at the base. You can see how we're aligned with our neighboring buildings to flush out at the property line.
Just to be clear, Jack, that to the left of the building, that's not us. That's a representation of our neighboring property.
Right, that's just a white box massing model equal to the size of our adjoining neighbors' buildings.
Correct.
So with that, I would open for any questions or.
Chair, that ends our direct testimony from our architect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioners, do any of you have any questions for the architect?
Madam Chair Lady, you got me in. I came in late.
Welcome, and we're going to put on the record that Commissioner Oliver is present. Do you have a question as well, sir?
No.
Right.
Mr. Jordan has also joined us.
All right.
One question.
No.
I have a
Commissioner
couple of
Purdy?
questions. If
Yes,
anyone on
what
the-
happens to Focus? I believe Focus is part of that site.
Focus is a site adjacent to this. It's not on this site.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I can't see all of the folks. Are there any other questions?
I have a question. Lee Fleming speaking, planner.
All right, Mr. Beck.
Lee, please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name, your address, and your affiliation to this application.
Lee Fleming, FLEMING, 20 Capica Court, board planner.
You may
HJ.
proceed.
Thank you. I was wondering, because there's 1 and 2 bedroom affordable units. I was wondering if it's possible to reconfigure any of the 2-bedroom units into 3s to provide a wider range of affordable housing types.
Yeah, so our architect, I think, can answer that question. But what I would say is the short answer to that is no. The building is 1 and 2 bedrooms. There are studios. What we have done is we've limited the affordable units to those 1 and 2 bedroom units to give people with maybe a larger family that have affordable needs an opportunity to live at the apartment. But I'll let our architect speak to the fact as to why we did review the letter and we did see that comment in there. But we can address that. Jack?
Well, I think programmatically, you know, the demographic of having varying size 2-bedroom units. So some are a little bigger, some are a little smaller. Same thing with the ones would allow multiple occupancy. So at this point, that's primarily how we try to accommodate variable occupancy. So, I mean, that's basically how we've addressed that issue.
Okay, my next question, I heard you say that the ground floor is 25 feet. What is
No,
the height of the
20 feet.
20 feet? What is the height of the doors into the driveways?
Well, the doors into the driveways don't have to be any higher than 10 feet. I think we're anticipating they're going to be somewhere between 10 and 12 feet.
Are the loading areas shown expected to be used for the commercial spaces?
Yeah, the loading area would be, the door for that would be 14 feet. But we also develop an urban fabric to the doors so that they have, you know, have a graphic detail to the doors so that they are pleasant to look at. I mean, they're utilitarian, but we can still make them look nice.
Okay, and I'm not sure if this is a question for you or if it'll be for someone else who provides testimony, but you're required 7 commercial parking spaces, but the plans just indicated 165. Is there any type of differentiation of how the commercial parking will be provided that is separate?
We anticipate, I mean, typically, we anticipate that the ground floor parking would be the most accessible for retail, and we have ground floor parking. So if parking is to be assigned for retail, that would be the prime space to do that. I'm just looking at the plan right now, and we have 9 spaces adjacent to the retail along Orange Street, and then more as the ramp proceeds. But that's typically how we would work with retail parking requirements.
But I guess my question really should have been that someone trying to patron one of the retail establishments can get into the garage. It won't be like a resident only fob or.
Well, it would be appropriate to have access off of Orange Street as it would relate to providing access to any retail parking that would be reserved. But there is space along that stairwell to provide that access if that was considered the most secure way to provide retail parking.
And I have another question regarding one of the trash rooms on the 5th floor. You have to walk through an amenity space to get there.
On the 5th floor, let me look at that. That is true. But the fitness area and the co-working area are individual spaces that share a common corridor, just like we would have a common corridor on a typical residential space. So you wouldn't be actually walking through those spaces. You would be just utilizing the normal corridor.
Okay, so I guess what I want to make sure of is that the space would be open so that in the event that the amenity space wouldn't be locked, so that residents would not be prohibited from disposing of their trash.
Oh, typically correct, yes.
Okay. And I know on the architectural plan, well, the engineering plan said see architectural plans for illumination.
Okay.
And then
for our civil plans, but that would be my colleague could speak to that issue better than I.
Okay, I just want to check because the civil plans reference the architectural plans for illumination, but then there was no illumination in the architectural plans.
Well,
but we can address that later with the civil engineer. I just want to make sure
sure.
someone has them.
I know that our parking ramp illumination is code specific, and so the street level illumination I would defer to my civil engineer colleague.
Okay. And is it possible anywhere in the building to put some type of secure bike storage?
Oh, we have extensive bike storage. And that is on the areas you see on the ground floor, we have bike storage there by that one stair. And then let's see here, we've discussed that extensively. I think some of the areas that we have on on level 3 and 4, where we have building service, I think there was some anticipation that some of that might be bike storage as well, because it's right there by the elevator. So someone could come down the service elevator with their bike and actually store it on in you know, the 3rd floor and 2nd floor and 1st floor. Those areas where we say service are ideal for potential bike storage.
And Ms. Fleming, if we could, we would, as
Sure.
a condition of approval, we would certainly mark those clearly on a revised set that would be provided to the board.
Right.
And we're happy and obviously wanting to provide bike storage, so we'll do that.
Okay, so service area will be revised for bike parking. And I just wanted to confirm that the roof isn't accessible since a roof plan wasn't provided. And then additionally, if a green roof, cool roof, any of those items are proposed.
Well, we're in the process of looking at the various alternatives to provide sustainability for the building. And some of those require green roof elements and some don't. So we're still working on that. I think the general sentiment is to provide a building that is a sustainable and wellness-based project.
And to be clear, there is no roof access.
Okay.
Yes, there's no roof access, except for service people. So.
Okay, I think that's all I have for now, but in case one of your other professionals doesn't answer my outstanding questions, I would like to reserve the right to circle back, if that's okay.
Madam Chair, this is Dan
Sorry.
Beck. I received a chat message that Counselor Souter is looking to adjourn his item, which is number 4
Are we
on the list.
interrupting this application to do so?
Well, he has his entire team on, and he didn't know whether he was able to keep them on the line till the very end to ask for the adjournment.
My intention was to hear this application because it had started.
That's fine. I'm just bringing it to attention because I did receive it, I believe, a chat from yourself and maybe myself and Pallavi that we should reach out to Mr. Souter, which is exactly what I did. So he's still on the line. I'm assuming he'll have to wait till this application is concluded and then you can address the issue.
Thank you for your patience. Mr. Murphy, did you have another witness?
I do. We have our civil engineer with it can run through his testimony rather quickly, and then our planner, John McDonough, will provide some planning testimony. Counselor, Mr. Tiago Duarte is on.
Oh, there we go. Good evening. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name, your address, and your affiliation to this application.
Tiago Duarte, D-U-A-R-T-E, Dynamic Engineering, 50 Park Place, Newark, New Jersey. We are the civil engineer on the project.
Counselor, did you qualify your witness?
Thank you, Counselor. Tiago, please provide your educational background and professional experience. We'll get you qualified as an expert in the field of civil engineering.
Yeah, graduated Rutgers University with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering in 2011. I've been practicing in the field of civil engineering, specifically land development, for over the last 10 years. I'm licensed in the state of New Jersey and my license is active, and I've testified before this board.
Certainly have. You may proceed.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair. Tiago, you've reviewed the reports, the engineering report dated 12/17, traffic and signal report dated 12/16, and water and sewer report dated 12/20, 2021.
Yes, I have.
Any objection to working with the engineering department to satisfy any of the recommendations in those letters?
No issues there.
Okay, wonderful. Can you please provide an overview of the engineering elements of this project? You can share your screen.
Sure.
Great.
So what I pulled up is the aerial map from our site plan set that was submitted with the application. I got the site at the center, square colored in, and a circle around it with a 200-foot ring, basically showing the developed nature of the existing area to the west, to the east, and to the south. To the north, we do have this open space area currently. Our demo plan shows the existing conditions, which are basically a fully developed site. Current use is surface parking. Site is accessed off of Orange Street via curb cuts. Under the proposed conditions, the existing site features, so all the pavement, all the existing features that are on site today will be removed for the construction of the new building, which you just heard testimony on from the architect. To give just a little more detail on that, so the building will be constructed in the center of the site. As you heard, there will be 3 driveways, one on Orange Street that will be ingress only movement, and then there will be another, the egress driveway at Lackawanna, and a loading area to the west of that egress driveway on Lackawanna. No driveways are proposed on University. You have building openings, so doors to access the building on all 3 of the right-of-ways, so you can access the building from each frontage. Additional improvements beyond the building will be streetscape in all 3 right-of-ways, so we'll be removing and replacing the sidewalk, new curbs, new sidewalk, new street trees, and additional decorative lighting will be provided, as well as bike racks within the sidewalk areas. Improvements to the site will also include utilities. The building will be serviced by new gas, new electric, new water, new sewer. We're also providing a stormwater management basin that'll be located within the ground, beneath the ground floor. It'll consist of 48-inch piping. So the roof leaders will be tributary to the stormwater basin, and ultimately that'll discharge out to Orange Street where the existing conveyance system exists. New lighting will be provided within the right of way, so we're going to do decorative lights to match the existing street poles. The light levels, we had noticed for a variance on exceeding the minimum at property lines. We did that conservatively because it's located within the right of ways, so we're going to exceed those levels at the property line. Landscaping, we're going to be providing new street trees. This plan currently has 16, which addresses the requirement, but if we need to remove some in discussion with the engineer, we might need to get rid of a few on Lackawanna to provide a safer site triangle for car movements in and out of the parking area. If we do have to reduce that number lower than the 16 that are required, we do agree to provide a contribution to the tree bank. Additional improvements, I mean, that just covers it. The magic really happens in the building, and we're just going to work to make sure that it all connects into the existing features around us.
Great. Tiago, does that conclude your direct testimony?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, great. Chair?
Commissioners, do any of you have any questions for Mr. Duarte?
Chairwoman,
Commissioner James?
I have a question regarding any proposed charging stations for electric vehicles at this particular site. I know a lot of developers are now trying to hear, so just wanted to see where they were going to be located.
We will be, and Tiago can, is it 6, Tiago?
Yeah, there'll be 6 spaces, electric charging stations, and they'll all be within the building, included in that overall 165.
And Commissioner, we'll certainly identify those in a revised set of plans as a condition.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner James. Any additional questions from any commissioners? All right, seeing none, Mr. Murphy.
Great. We have one more expert, Mr. McDonough. I think he's appeared before this board at least once before.
Mr. McDonough, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, your address, and your affiliation to this application.
Sure. Hi, everyone. John McDonough, MC, capital DONOUGH, and I'm the project planner.
Great.
All right, license current and in good standing.
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right, proceed.
Okay, so pretty straightforward application from a conformance standpoint. We're here in the north end of the downtown, right at the Broad Street Station. We've got a series of photographs that I'll say are fresh. We're taken at the subject site. Again, just for vantage standpoint orientation, you've got 280, the rail line. You've got the Broad Street Station with the tower just to the lower left-hand corner. And of course, the downtown would be off to the right, to the south. And then there's our New York skyline to the east across the river. Subject site is this parking lot that you see in the foreground. It's now a surface parking lot, which we know is disfavored here in the city of Newark. And the applicant is nicely going to fill that void with a mass that complements the downtown and is certainly going to complement what was just fresh in the board's ears from last week, the wonderful project that's happening over at the former baseball stadium with the City Square development that was approved just last week. And this is simply going to be a nice continuum to complement all of that nice transformation that we're starting to see in the area. So this is a view looking to the east. This is a view that's turning and looking to the south at the downtown. The subject property is this, again, little parking lot that you see in the foreground. You get a sense of, again, the Broad Street Station right there. So this is literally at the heart of the Broad Street Station plan, which we know is the centerpiece of sustainability in the community. And I'll say that lessened reliance on the automobile. This view spins us around now. We're looking to the west, so 280 is going to be off to the right, and there's the station, which is literally a hop skip away from this site. As transit-oriented development as you can get. This is the subject site. Again, that surface parking lot with its frontage on multiple streets. This takes us back full circle, back with a view looking back to the east again, and the bridge and the train station, and again, just reinforcing that nice new development that's coming across the street. And then finally, this is just a top-down view to show the space that we're working with. With that, I'll just put in proofs. I'll let this dwell on the screen, but we are here in the Broad Street Station redevelopment area. Sub-District A, we know that is the prime area of the Broad Street Station plan. It's called the Transit Hub in the plan. And the essence of the plan is to do exactly what this applicant is doing, to promote high-density, transit-oriented development around the community amenity that's here, and the huge public investment in mass transit. The area, as we know, is transforming with new development, and this is going to certainly continue that transformation. Importantly, in terms of project conformance, the list of project conformance is much longer than the list of relief that the applicant's asking the board to move on. All of the higher tiers of zoning are met here. The use, the density, the floor area, the height, the coverage, the setbacks, and the parking all comply. The applicant is not asking the board to move on any relief in that regard. The relief that the applicant is asking the board to move on are two categories. We've got the C-level relief, which is primarily design related. We do have a building step back variance that the applicant is asking the board to move on, but it is on the side on Lackawanna that faces the train station, faces 280, which is elevated, faces the the rail line, which is also elevated, and we think provides for a mitigating measure in terms of going with a flush building side on the Lackawanna side. We're also looking for relief related to the signage, to the transparency, and to the lighting. You've just heard testimony through both the architect and the engineer as to how the design will function and lay out safely and efficiently in accordance with, I'll say, sound engineering and design planning standards, to the extent that none of that relief is going to be substantially adverse. Second bundle of relief are for design exceptions, which are also primarily dimensional for the loading space size, the driveway width, and the driveway number. They're all nicely laid out in your planner's report. We think there's a planning rationale for both the C-level relief and for the design exceptions when we look at the project in its totality. That's the way the courts tell us to look at this, and all the good things that the project as a whole will do. So project benefits, promoting the core goal of the redevelopment plan and transit-oriented development around the station, eliminating an undesirable land use and replacing with a very beautiful building that's going to promote activity, revitalization around the station, not to mention new housing stock, affordable housing, that 20% set aside that you just heard as part of this inclusionary development. And then this is mixed use, so we do have commercial services as well. Of course, the more fundamental planning goals, the broader planning goals of efficient land use, compact development, and a variety of land uses in appropriate locations, not to mention promoting a desirable visual environment. All said, this is going to advance all of the fundamental purposes of zoning, but especially purpose A, promotion of the general welfare, purpose G, purpose I, and purpose M. On the flip side, no impacts of a substantially adverse nature. The building, I gave the rationale for the step back, the transparency. I'll let the architectural plans speak for themselves. That notwithstanding the analytical relief the applicant is seeking, the actual building has a nice balance of voids and solids. It's going to look very attractive, and the relief will not be perceivable. The signage is compatible with the area. The applicant's asking the board to move on relief for signage at the top of the building, but we know what's going on with some of those other buildings in the area as well, including the Audible, the business school, the IDT as well. So not asking for anything that's atypical of the area. Finally, the lighting levels, as you've heard, apply that appropriate balance of safety and minimizing offsite glare. And then I'll just fall back on the testimony of the other witnesses as to the design exceptions, that they're both reasonable and appropriate. All said, this is another really, really good application for the city here in the downtown, and just another continuum in all those positives that are taking place there. Most importantly, the statutory criteria for all of the relief are met here, and approval is warranted. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Mr. McDonough. Are there any questions from any commissioners? I don't see any. All right, Mr. Murphy.
Chair Richard, I think Miss Fleming had her hand.
Yeah, sorry, if the commissioners had questions, I wanted them to go first. So I didn't want to butt in.
You can go right ahead.
Thank you. Because variance relief is requested for the signs, actual dimensions weren't given. Do you have sign dimensions? Because if the board is going to be giving a variance, I think it's important that we record what the variance is for, other than just larger than 70 square feet.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be a John McDonough answer. Tiago or Jack, do we have those dimensions?
No, we don't have the specifics of the dimensions. We were anticipating that we wanted to put the issue on the table today, but it would be finalized whenever we submit our final signage packages.
Okay, my last question, and I understand this is not for Mr. McDonough, but I wasn't fast enough with your civil engineer. There's a planter box in the right of way. And I was wondering if you're allowed to put the planter box in the right of way off of your property line.
Yeah, I'll actually share my screen. You're referring to the Orange Street?
Yes.
Yes. So the revised plans that we submitted, we eliminated the planter aspect of it and just created a planting area. So it's just a cut in the sidewalk area. And the intent of that really is to just keep pedestrians away from the garage entrance and still accommodate access through that remaining area in the sidewalk.
Okay, thank you. Those were all my questions.
Thank you. Chair, we have no further witnesses.
All right, thank you. At this time, if there are any questions from the public, you can use the raise hand feature or dial *9 on your telephone so that we know that you have a question.
We'll just give you a few moments. So we do have one raised hand. I'm going to bring that person in.
Again, folks, if you're not speaking, please make sure that your device is muted. Is Ms. Spicer in?
Yes, I couldn't bring the person in, but I have allowed them to speak. So you will not see the video, but you will only hear them, the person. So person with the screen name, Makiba Spicer, if you can unmute yourself, we can get started. Mr. Beck?
Yes, Ms. Spicer, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give relating to this application shall be truthful?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
We can barely hear you. Can you increase your volume?
Sure. Hello?
Yeah, you still need to turn it up louder, please.
Are you ready for this?
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
it's better.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give as it relates to this application shall be truthful?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and your address for the record.
My name is Makiba Spicer, and my address is 496 Washington Street.
In Newark, New Jersey. My apologies.
Thank you. You may proceed.
You have 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. I just had a I asked in the chat. I just asked what is going to become of the residents that already live in this development. And it appears to be that you guys are talking about another area, but when I signed on for the information that's in front of my building, this was about my residence, but it's I'm just confused.
What
So,
address
Ms. Place-
is your residence?
It's 496 Washington Street. And there's a signage out front of my building that says there's a meeting today at 6 o'clock about my building.
All right. Hold on 1 second, please. Pallavi, Ms. Shinde,
Yes,
can you tell her which item that would be?
yes,
the next
that,
thing.
that I believe is another application that we have on the agenda. It is 496-506 Washington Street, CPB 21-82.
Okay.
So that
And
will
it's
be
next.
heard.
It's next,
Oh,
so just
okay.
hold
Okay.
on.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, are there any other questions, comments?
No other questions at this time, Madam Chair.
All right, commissioners, we need a motion.
Motion to move
Second.
Commissioner Good,
It was moved by Commissioner Purdy and seconded by Commissioner Timmons.
yes, thank you. Commissioner Good, I'm sorry, but if you're not speaking, can you please mute your devices? Okay, I will have to mute whoever is not muted.
Is that Commissioner Good, Pallavi?
Yes, I did.
Yes, yes, he's a
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Timmons,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Purdy,
it. Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver, Commissioner Oliver. You're muted, Commissioner Oliver. You can just give me a thumbs up if.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair,
Yes, your application has been approved. Thank you so very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Everyone stay safe. Happy holidays to all. And apologies to Mr. Sauter for having to sit through the application.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you.
All right, so at this time, Mr. Sauter, Pallavi, can you bring him, Ms. Shinde, can you bring him in, please?
I don't see Mr. Souter now. He's not here. Or did someone bring him in already? I did not see Mr. Souter. Mr. Souter, if you're there, can you please raise your hand? Or if someone from the applicant's team, just let the attorney know. Because we would hate to move ahead with the next application and then you have to wait again. Mr. Calvin Souter, are you there? I'll just give you a few moments. I guess he's not there. Mr. Beck, you let me know. Can we just put it on the record without him that we will be adjourning this application? Do we need him or anybody from his team? Mr. Beck, you're muted.
Tonight. There we go.
Okay.
The issue is if, in order to preserve the notices, we would have to put on the record the next date that he was looking for the 24th of January for that matter to be carried to. Is that date open?
Let me quickly check. I'm sorry, let me check quickly. I don't think we have that. We would have to move it to February, the first meeting in February. No, I don't have the date for that one. Let me ask the board planner. Leah, do you have the dates or not yet?
Not yet. Just give me a second to see.
Okay, I'm trying to look up too. So we have February 7. We can definitely schedule for February 7 next year.
I'll mark it on the record here that this matter will be carried, notices will be preserved, and it'll be heard on February 7th.
Okay. We can move on to the next application. Did we lose Commissioner Witcher? Let me call her. So Commissioner Witcher is having some technical difficulties. We'll just wait for a few minutes for Commissioner Witcher to join us. So for the record, the application number CPB 21-86, address is 52-90 Amsterdam Street, has been adjourned to February 7, 2022.
Baby, you finished with the food?
Chair, which we can move on to the next application.
Okay. The- For my edification, what was the date or what ended up happening with that last application?
So we adjourned the application CPB 21-86, 50, address is 50-90 Amsterdam Street to February 7, 2022, next year.
All right, thank you so very much. And thank you all for your patience. The next application is CPB 21-82, 496 through 506 Washington Street. Are the applicants available?
Yes, we have attorney Marsha Moore, and I'm bringing in the other team members.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members. My name is Marsha Moore, the law firm of Post Pollock on behalf of the applicant. I'm just doing a quick scan to see if I see the rest of my team. I see Mr. Warshawski, Mr. McDonough. Is that Mayor joining, Brandon?
He should if he put his hand up.
Okay, so I just see one more raised hand. I'm going to bring in the person. Are you good, Ms. Moore?
Yes, great. I can proceed. Again, good evening. My name is Marsha Moore on behalf of the applicant. So tonight we're seeking to convert an existing 7 residential townhouse row houses in the Lincoln Park redevelopment area located at 496-506 Washington Street into 21 residential units. We are seeking preliminary and final site plan as well as some C variances that I will be discussing during the course of our testimony. I am in receipt of the planner's report dated December 14th that we'll be addressing. We have no objection to the comments. However, we will be clarifying some of our testimony during the course of our presentation. I also received the engineer memorandum today. And while we have no objection, I do want to clarify there was a comment, item number 2 as parking and traffic, whether or not the applicant requires a parking variance. And it is our position that this application does not require parking variance on the redevelopment plan. Section 6.12 states that the parking is not required for rehabilitation of existing buildings or construction, new construction for lots under 5,000. The applicable portion here is that we are rehabilitating existing buildings, so we're not required to provide any parking. Just to confirm, the zoning determination signed by Ms. Brown indicates we don't need a parking variance, as well as reference to the planner's report indicates that we do not need a parking variance. So it's our position that no parking is required as part of this application, and thus we were not asking for, and we meet the requirements of the redevelopment plan. As far as the other items referenced in the report, we will be addressing a few comments, but again, we don't have any objections as a condition of approval of meeting those items. And the items that we'll be addressing in respect to the survey and whether or not there's any easements or encroachments, and our architect will be discussing that. I also received the memorandum from Water and Sewer this afternoon requesting the meeting. The applicant has no objection to meeting as a condition of approval. I have our witness tonight, my architect, Brandon Warshawski, as well as our planner, John McDonough. And should the board have any questions of the applicant, we also have a representative. So I'd like to bring my first witness, Mr. Brandon Warshawski, Chair.
Mr. Warshawski, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name, your address, and your affiliation with this application.
My name is Brandon Warshawski. Last name is Warshofsky. Reside at 53 University Avenue in Newark. I'm the architect at Brick Studios at 87 Halsey Street in Newark, New Jersey. I have a degree, Bachelor in Architecture from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. I graduated in 2013. I am licensed in New Jersey. My license is current and in good standing. And I've presented in front of similar boards and this board in the past.
Chair would ask that the board accept that Mr. Warshawski is a licensed architect.
Mr. Warshawski, your license is in good standing.
My license is in good standing, yes.
You're accepted by the board and you may proceed.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Warshawski, you're familiar with this project, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and you can just walk through the board what this application entails, just an orientation of the existing area and then the what we're seeking tonight.
Absolutely. So the project is 7 existing 3-story row houses that are attached with common party walls between them. And we are proposing converting these into new multifamily apartments, transferring them from townhouses into single floor apartment dwelling units, a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, each occupying 1 floor in one of the existing buildings that are partitioned by those firewalls to create 7 units per floor.
Brandon, can you just share your screen? I don't know if you want to pull up your plans.
Absolutely.
As an idea.
All right, if you can see on my screen, here's the project on Washington Street, 7 attached buildings. Some of them have extensions that are existing in the rear into the common rear yard. And we're proposing creating new dwelling units in each of the 7 buildings and dividing those units up by floor. So each of the buildings would contain 3 dwelling units. On the first floor, we're proposing a 2-bed unit, a 2-bed unit, 2-bed unit, a 2-bed unit, a 1-bed unit, a 1-bed unit, and a studio unit. Going up to the second floor, each building, since they're separated by party walls, each building has its own interior staircase, which is existing to remain. On the second floor, we're proposing a 2-bedroom unit, a 2-bedroom unit, a 2-bedroom unit, 2-bedroom unit, a 1-bedroom unit, a 2-bedroom unit, and a studio unit. And on the third floor, those additions exist only on the first and the second, so the floor reduces back to the front row house footprint for the third floor. So we're proposing here a 2-bed unit, a 1-bed unit, a 1-bed unit, 1-bed unit, 1-bed unit, a 2-bed unit, a studio unit. And we're proposing some cosmetic upgrades to the existing elevation, restoring the brickwork and refinishing the stonework on the first floor, replacing the front doors and repairing any of the concrete work as required to make it new and in good repair. There are existing stairs going down into basements that are separated for each building. We're proposing eliminating those entrances to minimize the number of entry points into the building. So the existing basement windows and doorways under the stoops are going to be removed. On the site plan, I also just want to call out the difference that I think the report picked up on, discrepancy between the location of the property line that I believe my architectural drafting was incorrect on this. And following the survey, the property line extends to include the bay windows and the stoops. So if we look at that from the survey, that property line is inclusive of those projections.
So while you're at that question, I bring the attention to the engineer memorandum, item number 5 on the survey, whether or not there are certain encroachments into the public right of way for Washington Street. Is it your testimony that there is no encroachment into the right of way? So there is no requirement for any easements or any hold harmless agreements? And I'm referring to number Roman numeral 1 and 2 in section 5 of the engineer memorandum.
Yes, in response to Roman numeral 1 and 2 of section 5 survey on the engineering memorandum. Sorry to cut you off, Marsha, dated December 20, 2021. The reading of the survey that was provided with the documents shows these elements of the building being online, therefore being within the boundary of the property and not encroaching into the public right of way.
And so as a condition of approval, we will be addressing and correcting that to reflect that there no encroachment exists. And so there is no need for any hold harmless agreement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then that was another comment in Mr. Barry's report, the planner's report, item number, planning comments number 13. So we would be I'm sorry. Yes, that would be item number 13 that we will be addressing discrepancy between the architecturals and the survey.
Yes, that is correct.
You can continue.
Thank you. We're showing the basements of the buildings with new fireproof self-closing doors, maintaining the fire separation of the party walls, but creating an access for the residents from the end buildings, the 496 building and the 506 building, to be able to access the basement level, and through the basement level access the common rear yard for the exclusive use of the residents. In the basements, we're proposing new mechanical systems, maintaining the clear floor areas for the units upstairs to create an efficient use of the existing footprints of the buildings. And in response to the planner's comments, we will also want to include parking for bicycles or bicycle storage in the basement with a quantity that satisfies the ordinance requirement, as well as laundry facilities in the basement, common for the building. That would be in response to items 6 and 8 of the planner's report.
And I'm sorry, just want a clarification. The laundry facilities is number 7 in the planner's report. So we mentioned that we are providing bicycle parking, the laundry facilities. And then as far as the internal access, can you just clarify, would all units have access to those front doors and come in?
Yes, it would be keyed in such a way that all of the residents would have access to the common foyer of the end building to be able to get down into that common basement area.
Okay.
Okay. And then I guess we want to address the minimum 75 square feet of floor area for bedrooms.
If we can, so one of the variances that we're asking for pertains to the bedroom size. The redevelopment plan calls for 110 square feet. There is a comment in the report that not all the units comply with that requirement. Can you state whether or not the applicant as condition of approval will be willing to comply with the bedroom size to meet 110 square feet? And then I'll address the unit size question. But first, if we can address the bedroom sizes, if it's our intention to comply with that.
Yeah, so it is applicant's intent to comply with that. And in response to the planner's comment, to eliminate any sleeping rooms that do not have at least 75 square feet of floor area, as well as that 110 square feet, where we will make sure that every bedroom satisfies that requirement, which will remain. So based on the planner's comments, we went back and looked at some of the bedroom sizes and identified some that were a little bit too small. This 504 right side building being one of them, where based on that comment, looking at it again, we agree that it would be more appropriate to mirror kind of the unit on the left with the right. So changing this from a proposed 2-bed unit to a proposed 1-bed unit in order to satisfy that floor area requirement. And that's typical for the 2nd floor, 3rd floor of that 504 right side. And any that don't satisfy the requirement on the 1st floor.
So in summary, we're not asking for a variance for bedroom size. That's fair to say.
That's correct.
Now, there is a variance that we're seeking in respect to the unit sizes, and the redevelopment plan does call out various square footage for a studio, a 1-bedroom, and a 2-bedroom. The report noted that none of the units conform to the unit size, but if just clarify that is our position, that's inaccurate. If you just walk through which units we're willing to provide the unit sizes, if you start on the 1st floor, and then we can work our way up for clarity for the 2nd and the 3rd floor. So we are asking for variance for unit sizes.
Yes, that's correct. So the unit sizes are based on the existing footprint of the building. We're not proposing any addition or expansion of the building. We're trying to work with the buildings the way that they are, in such a way to create welcoming and livable spaces. So the first one on the end, the 496 1st floor, is a 2-bedroom unit and is 705 square feet. So this would be one that is not seeking any relief.
Since that requirement is 700 square feet on the redevelopment plan.
Since that requirement is 700 square feet on the redevelopment plan, exactly. The next ones, we've identified these as some of those units where the minimum 110 square feet may not be met, that these could be eliminated. So by eliminating these bedrooms, this changes them from a 2-bedroom into a 1-bedroom. By getting rid of that front bedroom and instead just keeping the bedroom in the back. So that gives us a unit at 559, 614, and 585. And for a 1-bedroom, the redevelopment plan is calling for 600 square feet per unit. So that brings this one at number 500 into compliance, and then brings the ones on either side of it into within 40 square feet of compliance for a 1-bedroom. Taking a similar approach on these next ones and identifying that these bedrooms might be a little bit too small and not satisfy the requirement. These being instead as studio units with a requirement of 450. This comes in at 427, as well as the one next to it. So within 25 square feet of the requirement. And last,
And just to emphasize, this is respect to the unit sizes. We've already conceded that we will be complying to the requirements for bedroom sizes, correct?
yes. And then this one as a studio, the last one on the first floor, in the existing footprint of the building, we're able to satisfy with 371 square feet for this studio unit. For the ground floor units as well, since these obviously are existing buildings and this is not an elevator building, we're making our best efforts to comply with handicap adaptability to the extent feasible for these ground floor units. So each of these is laid out to have required ADA clearances in the kitchens and the bathrooms, as well as the living spaces. And then going upstairs on the second floor, the first unit on the end, we're looking for 700 square feet. We have 753. And then next, we have 563, 606, and 570 fitting in these existing footprints. And in these cases, the bedrooms do satisfy that 110 square foot requirement, and these would remain. The 504, the left side, is a one bedroom, and we think it's appropriate to make 504 right side also into a one bedroom to match. So that would reduce it. And we have 492 square feet, 485 square feet, where in this case, we're looking for 600 square feet. A studio unit at 432, where we're looking for 450. And then except for the back portion, the third floor plan kind of repeats. Everything stacks up. So we have a 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. Same thing here, that we would want this to become a 1. And a studio, in this case at 486 square feet, which is over the 450 required.
So can you just clarify what you said? Which one are you, what unit? Is that 504 on the third floor that we're going to ask for it to be a one bedroom?
This is 504 right side. It is mistakenly tagged as a 506 here, 506.
Sorry, I asked for the clarification.
14, but that is a 504 right side line unit that lines up with the one below. And for each of the top floor units, we're proposing putting the apartment entry door at the bottom of the stairs on the floor below, and keeping the stair as part of the unit to have that big open feel as you walk up. So it's not an enclosed stair, but it would be a small wall and an open into the space as part of the apartment. So while the units don't meet the redevelopment plan requirement for new construction or additions, we are constrained by the existing building, the existing enclosure, and this is to satisfy that without creating an addition, and to fit out each of these accordingly.
I have I don't know, Brandon, if you wanted to run through, but as far as one of the comments is the access to the rear yard of the property.
Sure, absolutely. So we're proposing, since there are stairs on both ends of the building, that there would be common access for the residents from both ends of the row houses to get into that common rear yard area.
And would the tenants have access to that rear yard?
And the tenants would have access to that rear yard.
Okay. And one another the question is pertaining, maybe a picture will be benefit, is the fire escapes on the front of the building.
Sure.
Will that remain?
There are existing fire escapes on the 504 left and right buildings, and those also exist within the boundary of the property line, and we're intending for those to remain.
And then one of the questions pertaining to the existing landscaping, we are seeking a waiver for insufficient shade trees. 4 is required, and we are proposing 2. Is there any ability to provide any additional landscaping on the shade tree? Can you just provide some testimony on that?
The way that the survey shows it now, there's not another available tree pit for us to plant, but based on some of the engineering comments, there may be an opportunity to place another tree. But if there's not, the applicant would be willing to pay into the tree bank for the deficit trees.
And in respect to the lighting, one of the comments is to the extent any comments in the engineering and also the planner's report, it is the applicant's intent to comply with the lighting requirements, correct?
Yes, that is correct. We'll revise accordingly and work with the department as required.
I have no further questions of you at this time, unless you have something additional.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Warshawski? Ms. Shinde, can you see any questions?
I have a question.
Sorry, I was going to say Mr. Chaffee-Canty also has questions, but go ahead, Ms. Jordan.
How old are these row houses?
We think they're from the early 1900s. Probably a little
Okay.
bit than that.
And what is going to happen with the basements?
The basements are existing to remain as a space. We're just going to close up the openings, the window and door openings from the front, and maintain the stoops, the bay windows, the whole facade as it relates to the footprint of the building.
Will the tenants have access to the basement?
Yes. We would propose.
So is it going to go straight across, or is it going to go, since they're townhouses?
Yes, so it'll go straight across, but it will be fire separated as the building code requires. So there'll be doors between the compartments.
Okay.
I got a question.
You too, Madam Chair.
All right.
I got a question.
Purdy first.
Where will they store the garbage and how will they bring it out front? Where will they store it?
Existing, the tenants are storing any of the garbage between the bay windows, that it sits on the property at street level outside. So we would propose putting some more permanent types of trash cans, not a little Rubbermaid, but probably a large receptacle with a lid that would be in front of each of the buildings to have a volume for the number of apartments and for twice a week pickup.
Question.
Go ahead, Mr. Oliver. We lost Commissioner Vitcher, but go ahead. I think she will join us in a few minutes.
Can I speak now?
Yes, Mr. Oliver.
Okay. How would they go about making the row houses fire prevented from each other?
Absolutely. So the row houses, the existing masonry party walls. So they are currently fire separated from each other, and that will be maintained. There would be no new penetrations between the units that would compromise that fire separation.
So they would put something between each one.
Yes, existing already is something between each one.
Okay, thank you.
Is this a historic landmark?
It's not in a historic district.
No, it's not a historic landmark.
Okay, so why aren't you going higher? I'm just trying to understand the premise, because the units are so small. It's pretty archaic, at least aesthetically. But is there any reason why you're not trying to increase density by going higher?
The applicant, is not looking to obviously completely tear it down, and going higher, more than a floor starts to become a problem in regard to the construction type as it relates to the building code. And the rehabilitation subcode allows for a lot of things that if it were to be new construction or if we were to put an addition, may trigger some other things, elevator requirement, replacement of stairs that becomes challenging to do a project like this. To add one floor on and then prohibitive by the code to add much more than that.
Got it. So this is a full rehab. So I'm assuming, because I know the maintenance costs got to be outrageous, just to maintain, this property. But you're saying this is going to be a full rehab, but I don't see any major aesthetic changes. I know you brought up a rendering, but I didn't see any changes from the exterior. I didn't see any facade improvements. I didn't see anything to that extent.
Sure. So we're proposing, freshening it up. It's, for what it's worth, it's in pretty good condition. This one in particular, the masonry is in good shape. It needs some power washing, but it's not substantially in need of too much love. The first floor, the stonework maybe is a little more. Proposing finishing that, with a more contemporary color scheme, replacing the doors, replacing the windows, any of the white windows. We're going to replace with a window color that's more appropriate for the buildings. Even though it's not in a historic district, they're obviously from a certain period, and there are practices that we do for projects that are in historic districts that we like to carry into our projects that we do that don't necessarily fall into those historic districts. So it is certainly the intent that it will have some curb appeal when we're done with it.
My last question, do you have any outstanding DCA or code violations for this particular property? I'm assuming you've had to, I know the 5-year DCA inspection as well as code violations, but any outstanding ones at this point, to your knowledge, council, or?
I'm not aware of any DCA or code violations.
Yes, none to my knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner James. Any additional questions or comments from the commissioners? If not, I see Ms. Fleming, your hand is raised. Would you like to address the board?
Yes, thank you. So I do have a couple of questions. One of them is that you had provided testimony about the ground floor units being able to be converted to ADA, but it looks like there's some overlap with your circles in the bathroom with some walls and doors. So would these units actually be able to be converted? And if I'm not mistaken, do you have to go upstairs to get to the ground floor?
Yes, that is the case. It is up a stoop. So that's why I wouldn't lead with the word accessible right away, but that they are adaptable. On similar projects in Newark and in Jersey City, other places, we've complied with to the extent feasible the ability to make a ground floor unit adaptable. So that does come down to turning radiuses and and clearances around things, more so than it being necessarily that it's full wheelchair accessibility, but that it is set up for the adaptability. That might be someone in crutches or with some mobility issues, but not someone wheelchair bound. So it creates some unit stock for residents with those needs.
And then my next question is, you said that the fire escapes are proposed to remain. Are they intended to be used? So if I'm in an end unit, would I be able to actually get out through the 504s, or is that what the firewalls are intended for?
The firewalls separate the units. The current codes that are in effect based on this building, the structure, the size of the windows, the height above the level of fire department vehicle access, does not necessarily preclude the requirement of fire escapes currently. Those as something that exists. We'll keep them there, but our interpretation of this is that the building does not require fire escapes for any life safety purpose.
Okay, but the residents would still be able to get out some way if they're not using the fire escapes. It's still going to be to building code where it will be safe.
Emergency escape and rescue openings as required. Yes.
Okay, and I know that others had questions about the basement. I just want to make sure, because of how you go down from the end units and you have the firewalls, does that mean that those doors that separate each basement for the townhouses are going to always be unlocked? Since now we're going to also have communal laundry facilities and bike storage. I guess what I'm asking is, so each basement is not necessarily tied to the units above it and everyone will have access?
That's correct. It'd be a common basement area, mostly kind of to circulate through. It'll be mechanical spaces. It'll be, hot water heaters, any other equipment that's needed for the units. And then I think it would probably end up that there's some, maintenance stuff down there, some yard tools for the management company to make sure that the
but like everyone's going to have access. Like I'm not going to get closed off because I'm in a center unit. I'll still be able to get to it.
That's correct.
And you are going to be able to provide sufficient refuse and recycling. And I only ask because you are tripling the number of units in this building. If they're going to be stored in the front, there'll be enough space for everyone.
Yes, we anticipate that there's enough space for everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Chair has returned, so I'm going to step off.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Charlie Traficante has his hand raised.
I'm certain.
Can I ask one more question before? I'm sorry.
Yes, Commissioner.
So, even though these are townhouses, they're basically rental units currently, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Jordan. Mr. Traficante, has he been sworn in? Mr. Beck?
Yes, Mr. Traficante, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and your affiliation to this to the city.
My name is Charles Traficante. I'm a professional engineer. I'm also a principal engineer and employee at the City of Newark Department of Engineering. My license is active and in good standing with the State Board. Questions from Mr. Warshawski. Mr. Warshawski, you stated under testimony that none of your bay windows or stairs, or for that matter, fire escapes encroach into the public right of way. Unfortunately, the survey prepared by your surveyor, Mr. Thomas F. Miller, shows at least all 7 stairs with the bottom tread encroaching and at least 3 fire escapes also encroaching. What do you have to substantiate that these encroachments don't exist?
I would have to rely on the information on the survey. And if it reads that there is an encroachment of an existing stair, then that may be the case and may warrant further exploration. But certainly as part of the testimony, I did want to clarify that my architectural plan had positioned the property line at the front face of the building, or the plane of the door, which is not the case.
Are you a licensed land surveyor in the state of New Jersey?
I'm not a licensed land surveyor.
All right.
Can I address that? To the extent that there is an encroachment, the applicant's position is that we will be willing to provide a hold harmless agreement. So as a condition of approval, once we review the survey, if there is an encroachment, then we will be providing a hold harmless agreement. And that's respect to items 5.1, Roman numeral 1 and 2.
That's both for the stairs and the fire escapes. Is that
That
correct?
is correct. Again, this is an existing building, so there are encroachments. It's existing. I've not had a chance to review any easement agreements or any title. But again, to the extent if there is an encroachment, then a hold harmless agreement, I believe, would be sufficient.
All right. Well, again, I defer to the board attorney on that, but yes, if there is encroachments, and it appears to be pretty much by the survey, which needs to be sealed, by the way. All right, they show all 7 stairs to the front doors and at least 2 to 3 of the fire escapes also encroaching in the property right-of-way line for Washington Street. Last question, Mr. Warshawski, the engineer's report to the board dated today, December 20th. We asked for testimony to be provided. I believe it's under item number 4, Roman numeral 11. Applicant shall provide testimony to the board as to what the monitoring well is for that is located within the sidewalk area between number 500 Washington Street and number 502 Washington Street. Applicant shall provide further testimony as to the future disposition of this monitoring well and whether or not it is accessible from finished grade. Could you clarify, Mr. Warshawski? Do you know what the monitoring well is for?
Absolutely. So the monitoring well was picked up on the survey. We do not have any evidence that it is something that is active or related to the building. It may have been something that was put there, may have been abandoned, may have been removed, but did certainly come up on the survey. And we would be happy to work with the department to figure out what it is for and if any action needed to be taken with it.
And if need be, made accessible from grade, raised to grade if need be?
If need be, made accessible from grade.
All right, so you're willing to investigate that and find out what its intended use is for, if it's still active or it's been abandoned, or or what the situation.
Yes, we will do our homework on that.
All right. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Traficante. Are there any other questions for this witness from any members of the panel? I don't see anyone. Ms. Shindy, do you see anyone? No?
No, I don't see anybody.
All right, Ms. Moore, who's your next witness?
At this time, I'd like to call our planner, John McDonough.
Good evening, Mr. McDonough. You're accepted by the board.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're still under oath and you're accepted by the board.
Duly acknowledged. Take it away, Marsha.
Take it away, John.
Take it away. Okay, the application has evolved. It's pretty straightforward at this point. I'll just show pictures that Brandon just showed to the board that we're dealing with an existing building in the Lincoln Park redevelopment plan. The nice thing about this, of course, is that this building that's been a longstanding part of the city, a longstanding part of the community around the Lincoln Park itself, which we know is a focal point here in the city, one of the 3 colonial parks. Keeping part of that historic fabric is certainly a good thing. Adaptive reuse is certainly a good thing from a planning standpoint that minimizes construction impacts on surrounding properties. This is really a retrofit application. I think our applicant has done a good job of responding to the comments from your board planner about undersized units. And if I was following along with the, I'll say, scorecard, keeping track of what Brandon was describing with the modifications to the plan. I think of the 21 units now, the majority of them do conform. The applicant is still asking the board to move on relief as to some of the unit sizes for studios being less than 450 and some of the units being less than 600 square feet for the 1 bedroom. But if you do the actual math, the units that are undersized are approximately, I'd say in the mid 90s, 94, 95% compliant. I think there's 1 or 2 that are below in that regard. But I think the application strikes a good balance here of providing for, I'll say, a diversity of housing types. Some smaller units are conducive to either an empty nester, somebody just starting out, somebody who wants the smaller unit. There is certainly demand for that. And all of these units are going to comply with building code. So you've got that extra layer of protection there as well in terms of those unit sizes. In terms of the relief, I believe that is the actual only thing where we've landed. The bedroom sizes have been fixed by the application. The insufficient shade trees is mitigated by contribution to the tree fund. And we think that the relief related to those unit sizes is met under the C2 balancing test, whereby the benefits of the application as a whole would substantially outweigh the detriments. Project positives, of course, are providing for a variety of housing types, renovation, adaptive reuse of an existing established building here in the community, and again, the promotion of a desirable visual environment with upgrades to the building that is presently there. On the negative side, no impacts of a substantially adverse nature based on the testimony and the back and forth with the board's professionals and the applicant, to the extent that, again, under C2 balancing, the benefits of the application as a whole here would substantially outweigh the detriments, promoting the general welfare, which is one of the main goals of one of the core goals of our land use law, and counterbalancing that by meeting the negative criteria with no substantially adverse impacts on the public or the zone plan. So again, it's a good application, a simple application. Taking the 7 units, upping it to 21 is more in line with market demand today and certainly meets the test. With that, I'll rest.
All right. Commissioners, anybody have any questions for Mr. McDonough? Please raise your hands.
Thank you. President Trump taking action to try to block investigations.
Commissioner James, you have a question?
No, I asked my questions prior already.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any questions. I have a question. Is this building presently occupied?
Yes, it is. Brandon, you want to test? It is occupied, Brandon.
And
there's some units, I believe approximately 4 or 5 units are occupied.
Partially occupied.
So for those 4 or 5 units that are presently occupied, what's been communicated to those tenants? Will they be able to stay? Are they being relocated? What is the status?
The intent is to phase the construction accordingly. Maybe not do it all at once, but wait until each of the units is available. Each of the buildings is situated to properly do the work without a detrimental impact to anyone.
How's that possible?
To do the construction, excluding some of the existing buildings until likely those leases expire. And then once the units become available, the work would occur.
I have another question with regards to those basements. Is there anyone living in those basements, whether a tenant or a squatter or otherwise?
There's no one living in those basements.
And I see that those windows to the basement, and I guess you said the entries to the basement would be shut. What's the benefit of that?
Less points of ingress for unwanted ingress, squatters and the like, and it is not the intent to utilize it for habitation. Therefore, they are not required for the use.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other panelists with questions? All right, Ms. Moore, is this your last witness, Mr. McDonough?
Yes, that is my last witness, Chair.
All right, so I know that we had at least one question, one person from the public. If there are any members of the public who would like to ask questions with regards to this application, please use the press on raise hand on your screen or your telephone, or dial *9. All right, we have that one. Is that Miss
Yes.
Makiba?
She is in right now. Yes. Person with the screen name Akiba Spicer. If you can unmute yourself and start your video. Miss Spicer, can you unmute yourself and start your video?
Yes, ma'am. Hi.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's get you sworn in. Mr. Beck?
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes, sir. I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Sure. My name is Makiba Spicer and my address is 496 Washington Street. I'm on the 3rd floor in Newark, New Jersey.
Thank you. You may continue.
Okay. So just to go back to my original questioning regarding what's going to happen with the residents, I actually wasn't even notified from the building that they were considering doing any reconstruction. I actually saw the placard on the side of the building. I happened to walk in the opposite direction that I normally do, and that's the only reason that I was aware that there was actual meeting about them doing potential work on the property. So I was not informed. I have not heard anything about, what is supposed to happen as far as, are they going to relocate the residents? Are they going to provide us another apartment? Are they going to compensate us? Any of that information. And also, when is this construction supposed to begin?
So I can just address the notice issue. So all notices were provided to accordance to the municipal land use law, and we also posted the property 10 days prior to. As far as the relocation, I believe Mr. Wachowski indicated that a phase. Certainly the applicant or the owner will be willing to meet with the tenants to go over the actual process, but Mr. Wachowski can address that. And Amir, I don't know if you want to address anything. You'd have to be sworn in.
Yeah, I could certainly address it a little bit. These projects also do take some amount of time. I think once a meeting like this happens, it becomes a little bit more concrete as to what a potential construction schedule might look like. So those would be details that would be developed following and approval, and typically not something to develop before having that approval. And certainly I think the management company will do its job to reach out properly, give notice, and once there's a plan in place of how it's phased and what kind of impacts, to work with everyone to make sure that there's a satisfactory arrangement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that Ms. Spicer? Are your questions satisfied?
I guess for the purpose of this meeting, I suppose.
Ask your next question. All they can say is we can't answer it now.
I mean, I did not receive a notice, and I get a notice every month that my rent is due, and I would have expected perhaps that it would have been attached to an email or something of that regard. But again, as I said, I only was able to see that signage on the side of the building because I decided to walk down the street that way instead of going to the right like I normally do. So, my expectation is not that high.
Well, I appreciate that you followed through and joined the meeting and expressed your concerns.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's 8 o'clock. and I'm-
There are no other raised hands.
I see a message in the chat from Hedda. Hedda, do you want to speak? If you do, raise your hand and we can bring you in.
I still got the computer on.
Yes,
It's after 8
ma'am.
o'clock and I'm going to bed.
Hi, this is Hedda.
Yes, let's get you sworn in, Mr. Beck.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes,
And please state your name and address for the record.
sure. Hedda Rusi, 12-14 Longwood Street, Newark, New Jersey.
You may proceed.
Yeah, so I live around I actually live right across from there. I had a question about the garbage. Well, that's one. That street is so small. I heard the architect talk about the diameter, the dimensions there, tiny, and I see the garbage that they already have on the property. Again, very small. Where are they putting that? That's one. Two, we're going from 7 to 21 units. The parking around here is atrocious. Since we put up a new building at the corner of Longworth and Washington Street. That passed because at least the owner, he put parking underneath the building, which makes sense. And even with that, it's atrocious. The parking is just atrocious around here. So one, again, the garbage, I'm just concerned about that because it's so small, one, and then two, again, the parking. What are we doing to address that?
Thank you, Ms. Hedda.
Sure, thank you.
So I'll have Brandon address the garbage, and then I can address that we do comply under the redevelopment plan. The redevelopment plan specifically states that we do not need to provide any parking. So we're not asking for variance because we meet the requirements on the RDA, on the redevelopment plan. Because this is not a new construction, this is a rehabilitation. It specifically does not require us to provide any additional parking. So the applicant's not asking for any deviation, any waivers or variances as far as the parking is concerned.
And on the trash and recycling, I agree. Right now I think it's a little bit unsightly the way it's kept. Our intent is to provide receptacles that are appropriately sized for the number of units. Have them for the recycling, for the trash, that they can be organized and something that doesn't detract from the front of the building, that they would be maintained properly, and through the building management, they would be brought to the curb for pickup regularly. So it would handle the refuse in a better way than it is now, in the same location.
So are they going to handle the garbage in the back of the property, or that they're going to excuse me, they're going to maintain the garbage as I see today, passing today, in front of the building? Now, we as owners, we can't keep our garbage in front of buildings. We get ticketed almost every day. They come by here and they would ticket you if you have your garbage in the front of the building. Will they still maintain the garbage cans as I see today in front of the building, or will that be behind the building? And then when come garbage day, they move it to the front like us, like we have to do here as residents.
Right. So the configuration of this site doesn't allow for any access to the rear yard for the front yard. So it is the intent to maintain the receptacles where they are in the front, in an organized and maintained fashion. But there would not be a feasible way to move trash from the back of the building to the front of the building regularly.
So the tenants will have to throw their garbage out in the front, and it's going to stay there all week until pick up on Tuesday and Friday?
Yes, and we're proposing it in larger, lidded trash cans, probably 96 gallon. The ones that have the integral lid with the wheels, so that they can maintain a nice orderly appearance in the front of the building.
So in the front, I'm sorry, I'm about aesthetics because I pay high taxes to live here and that just bothers me. So when I walk on the sidewalk and there's garbage cans under, is it flush against the building? Because the stairs already encroach somewhat going towards the street. So are we putting the garbage cans next to the stairs or flush against the wall?
Tucked in on the side of the building, so they'll sit entirely on the property, and would not project out into the sidewalk.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? And thank you, Ms. Hedda.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
No, I don't think there are any more questions.
All right.
Brandon, do you want to address that based on her comments, whether or not the applicant's willing to maybe relocate the garbage area?
Yes, I guess based on the feedback, applicant would be willing to look into some alternative options for that.
We have one more raised hand at this time. I will bring in the person, Tony Gibbons. Mr. Gibbons, if you can unmute yourself.
Yes,
you can get sworn in. Thank you.
Have I successfully unmuted myself?
Yes, you have.
Okay, I just want to point out.
Hold on. Let's get you sworn in, Mr. Beck.
Okay. Dan, you have to unmute. I can't hear you.
Mr. Beck, you need to unmute.
I got to unmute. Some night tonight. Good evening, Mr. Gibbons. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes, I swear.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Anthony Gibbons. My office is at 59 Lincoln Park, and I own the greenhouse and the carriage house that abut these buildings. And I also, at one time, I developed the Great Oaks Charter School, which abuts these buildings on the other side. And I know from history that the alleyway that runs from Washington Street back to the school and it abuts the Hanini's property there. They have, as of right, they are allowed access onto that alleyway. So if they so choose, they have a right, because it's in the deed, to go to the school and say, we want to keep at the behest of the community, we would like to keep our trash in the back of the building and then bring it out on trash nights. I'm sure the school has to comply because it's deeded in that property to always have access. It's a common right of way, that alleyway. The school maintains it, but it's common to both those buildings and the school property. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. That was informative.
Again, Madam Chair, I believe Mr. Wachowski indicated that based on, and thank you, Mr. Gibbons, for providing that information, that the applicant will be revisiting the storage of the refuse. So whether or not that's the access to the rear or possibly in the basement, but we agree that we will not be storing it in the front. Is that correct, Mr. Wachowski?
As long as there's another feasible option, which based on all of this, it sounds like there is, then we will find somewhere to put it that is not in the front.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions? I see no other hands raised. What, do you see anything, Ms. Shindy, on your end?
No, I don't. So there are no raised hands.
All right. Commissioners, we need a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make the motion to accept this motion that's presented. I'm excited about it. It's incremental on the street. It's not a cataclysmic development with 600 units and 9 billion parking spaces. I appreciate the developers for conforming to a very nice urban concept.
Second.
Commissioner Timmons,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Purdy,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver,
Yes.
Commissioner Good,
Enthusiastically, yes.
Chair Witcher.
Yes. Thank you all. Your application has been approved.
Thank you. Have a wonderful holiday if I don't speak to you. Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you again.
All right. We're off to application CPB 21-62. It's 16-32 Fulton Street. Are the applicants available? I see Jennifer Mazaway and her team raising their hands. Again, folks, if you're not speaking, please mute your devices.
If you're having trouble, try resetting your router. Make sure it's plugged and broadcasting a wireless signal.
Ms. Mazaway, you can get started on bringing in people, almost finishing up.
No, I seem to be having technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay. I guess my
Can't
headphones.
seem to bring this one person in.
Did we lose Miss Mazaway?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm sorry. I thought Ms. Shindy was still trying to bring somebody up as a panelist. I apologize.
No, so I'm having a little issue too. There's one person that, okay, I brought the person in. You could Miss Mazaway. You can proceed.
Thank you. I apologize for my delay. Good evening, board members and members of the public. My name is Jennifer Mazaway, Mazawey. I'm a partner with the law firm Genova Burns at 494 Broad Street in Newark. I'm here tonight on behalf of Fulton Street, Newark. We're here for CPB 21-62. Our address is 16-32 Fulton Street. We're block 14, lots 43 through 51. We're located in the Living Downtown redevelopment area. And 2 of our 9 lots are actually located in the Military Park Historic District as well. And I'll start by letting the board know that we also have appeared before the Historic Board and were granted approval at their meeting in early November. We're here this evening to talk about a property that has for many years been a surface parking lot on Fulton Street, abutting 57D Broad Street. And we are here to seek approval to construct a 22-story mixed-use residential building with approximately 396 units, 4,800 square feet of ground floor retail, and a 3-story parking garage with approximately 106 parking spaces, as well as a number of building amenities. We will be providing on-site 20% of affordable units as well. So of the 396 units, 80 are proposed to be affordable, which we are very happy to bring to this board, that we will be compliant with the IZO. That was a comment in the planner's letter, and we're able to testify this evening as to that. Notice of our hearing this evening was published in the December 9th Star Ledger and was mailed on December 8th to property owners located within 200 feet of our property. We've also posted signs on the property at least 10 days in advance, and photographs of those have been provided to the board secretary. We have 5 witnesses this evening, although we will be efficient. We're going to kick off our presentation with Miles Berger, who is a principal of both Fulton Street, Newark, as well as the owner of the building at 10 Park, which is 10 Park Place Associates. We're then going to hear from Kyle Goodwin, who's a professional engineer with Stonefield. He's our civil engineer, and he'll provide the background testimony as it relates to the layout of the site. After that, you'll hear from John Korak, who is our traffic engineer. We are seeking a parking variance this evening, and we'll talk a little bit more about that during the testimony. And so John is here this evening to talk through the proofs for that parking variance. Then you'll hear from Carlos Cardoso, who is our licensed architect with Beyer Blinder Bell BBB Architecture, and he's going to talk about the architectural features of our project. And we're going to finish up with John McDonough, who'll provide some planning testimony with regard to a few of the variances that we require. As I mentioned, the parking variance. We also have a transparency variance. And we'll, during testimony, we'll tell the board a little bit more about why we have the transparency variance. And we're sure that the board will agree with us to grant that. We believe we'll meet the proofs for that. Insufficient shade trees. And there's another variance for insufficient illumination, some lighting variances. We're going to agree, and our witnesses will put this on the record as well. We're going to agree to comply with the lighting requirements for the city's ordinance. So we're during resolution compliance, if the board were willing to grant our an approval of our application, we will update our lighting plan to ensure that there's compliance with the lighting requirements for the city. There are also a couple of design waivers, and we'll talk through those as well, including number of driveways and width of driveways. And with that, if the board is ready, I'm going to call my first witness, which is Mr. Miles Berger, or who is Mr. Miles Berger?
You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Berger. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this board should be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name, your address, and your affiliation with this application.
Yeah, Miles Berger, 50 Park Place, Newark, New Jersey. I am the president of 10 Park Place Associates, Inc., the present landowner. And I am a member of Fulton Street LLC, which will be the developer and builder and ultimate operator of this apartment house and mixed-use project.
Thank you, Miles. In addition to the current development team to Fulton Street, Newark, do you own any other property in Newark?
Yes.
And what other, if you wouldn't mind telling the board a little bit about your other development and ownership that you have in Newark.
Okay. So, I came to Newark in 1975 when I purchased the then closed Holiday Inn on Broad Street and operated that for many years. In 1984, I purchased the Robert Street Hotel, which was on the verge of closing, and over a period of about 6 or 7 years, renovated both the hotel structure and the attached office building, which is called the Robert Street Center, a 100,000 square foot office building, and brought it up to code and improved it and have been successful in its operation since then. Thereafter, in approximately 1987, I purchased the Military Park Building, which is a 250,000 square foot office building on the corner of Park Place and East Park Street. That building houses about 70 tenants, all office tenants, lawyers, accountants, architects, and some retail on the first floor. In 2017, I took the old Carlton Hotel on East Park Street, a building on the National Register, and renovated it completely from top to bottom and reopened as the Trip by Wyndham Hotel, which is right opposite PSE&G. And we're presently operating under a franchise from Wyndham Hotels. In about 2015, I purchased 570 Broad Street, an office building on the corner of Broad Street and Fulton, which is the neighbor to this future development. And that's a 200,000 square foot office building, which we operate with some of New Jersey's largest law firms as tenants. Most recently, I and partners purchased 33 Washington Street, which is the second home of Audible in Newark, where they presently occupy 5 floors. In addition, we have other tenants there, the state of New Jersey, and approximately another 6 tenants in very large spaces. So I've been in Newark practically my whole working life, working here.
Thank you, Miles. And the property that we're looking to develop, how long has that been a parking lot?
That's been well, I bought it 35 years ago, and it was, except for one building which had an old closed hotel on it, which has been since demolished. The rest of it has been a parking lot probably 45 years, but I bought it 35 years ago.
Great. And our proposal this evening is for 396 dwelling units. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is it your testimony that we will comply with the city's inclusionary zoning ordinance by having 20% affordable units on site?
Yeah, we actually exceed it because 20% of 396 is 79, and we're going to have 80 units, so we exceed it by 1. But there'll be 80 affordable housing units in this building.
Great. With regard to operations at the building, is garbage pickup going to be through private haul that you will hire?
Oh, yes, private hauler.
And the garbage will be kept interior to the building? Is that
Yes,
correct?
yeah, it'll be on steel canisters, which wheel out just on collection day. Otherwise, it'll be hidden from the public.
Okay. And with regard to safety and security at the building, our architect will speak to some of the features that are on the building, but will we agree to comply with Newark's ordinance as it relates to security at the building for a residential project of this size?
Absolutely. And in reference to the video surveillance cameras, which we'll be recording, we'll exceed it.
Thank you. And is it accurate that you own or operate other parking facilities that are in close proximity to the proposed development here?
Yes, I have 3 parking lots. One is contiguous to this on the backside facing Lombardi Street. I operate that, and another one on Fulton Street across the street from this project.
Terrific. Thank you. I have no further questions for Mr. Berger.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Berger? No, seeing none, who's your next witness?
I'd like to call Kyle Goodwin.
Good evening, Mr. Goodwin. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth as it relates to your testimony relating to this application?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name, your address, and your affiliation.
My name is Kyle Goodwin. It's spelled Kyle-E-Goodwin. I'm with Stonefield Engineering and Design, and we're at 92 Park Avenue in Rutherford, New Jersey. And we are the civil engineer in the project.
Thank you, Kyle. I just want to qualify you for the board before we begin. Could you please provide us with your educational background and the status of your license, please?
Sure. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Alabama, and I'm a PE in the state of New Jersey, and my license is in good standing.
Thank you.
You're accepted by the board. Proceed.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
So I'm going to
go ahead, Kyle.
I'm going to start by sharing my screen and kind of discussing the existing conditions of the site. So just give me a moment here. Can everyone see my screen?
We can. And
okay,
Mr. Beck, we'd like to mark this. This is an exhibit. So it was not included in our plan set before the board. So we'll mark this as Exhibit A1, please.
Please do.
Okay, so
Kyle.
Marking this here. All right, so just wanted to start by discussing very briefly the existing conditions of the site. As was discussed previously, it is developed with a parking lot. To the north is a contiguous part of that parking lot, as well as to the east. Again, to the south is another portion of a parking lot, and then residential developments, and then to the west is a commercial office building. As it relates to the engineering letter we received from the city, There was one comment regarding a light pole on the northern portion of the property. That light pole will be relocated further north onto the parking lot there. Again, it is also owned by the same ownership, so there's no issue in relocating that. And similarly, there was a question regarding a wrought iron fence along the southerly and westerly property lines. With regard to that, that would be removed. Again, the same ownership owns the building to the west, so there's no issue with removing that fence. Next, I'd like to turn your attention to our site plan. This is actually a, let me give it a second to load. It is actually just a colorized version of our engineered plan that we submitted to the city. So I can mark it as an exhibit, or if I need to.
Yeah, I think we should mark this as exhibit A2. It is the site plan, but we've rendered it or colorized it. So for purposes of the record, we'll call this A2.
Okay, marking this as A2. So again, as was noted, we are a development that is a 22-story high-rise residential building. It does have a component of retail on the bottom floor, and then there would be a 4-story garage within the building that's completely enclosed. That provides 106 parking stalls as well as 10 electric charging stations.
I'm going to stop you there for 1 second, Kyle.
Sure.
There was a comment in the planner's report that asked if applicant would be willing to include an additional 5 make-ready spaces for electronic vehicles. And is it your understanding that the applicant is willing to do that?
Yes, it's our understanding that 5 additional make-ready stations would be able to be provided.
Thank you.
I just want to start with the southern facade here. There's two proposed curb cuts as part of our plan, and they lead to 2 separate garage entrances. One is an entrance to the parking garage itself, and the other is an entrance to a loading area within the building. As a note on the 2 entrances there, it was requested it was a comment from the engineering letter that we widen the 2 entrances from 22 feet to 24 feet. It is our finding that the 22 feet is sufficient as far as vehicle movements. We've taken a look at it on our end, and there's no issue with the vehicle movements there. And further, it would be a hardship structurally and architecturally to widen them from 22 to 24 feet. So since the vehicles would have adequate space, we would continue to propose 22-foot wide garages there. With regard to the curb cuts, there are 2 curb cuts proposed, a 27-foot and a 24-foot curb cut. Again, with regard to the letter that we received from the engineering department, they had requested that we consolidate access to 1 curb cut. It's our feeling that the 2 curb cuts are provided where there are 2 entrances, and that would allow channelization of vehicles to the 2 separate entrances and would channelize vehicles away from that column in the center of the 2 entrances. So it's preferred to have 2 separate curb cuts rather than to consolidate them into one smaller, or to one 30 to 36-foot curb cut. Within the parking garage, just one other note with regard to the engineering letter, there was a request that we put bollards around the columns within the access driveway to the parking garage. The parking columns would actually be protected as part of the architectural and structural plans. So it is our thought that we wouldn't also need to add bollards. As Jennifer mentioned earlier, we will be seeking a waiver for the lack of trees. We are providing 1 shade tree on the property and along the streetscape. Unfortunately, because of the curb cuts, because of the PSE&G vaults that PSE&G had requested for the building there in the sidewalk, and then there's an architectural feature for the overhang on the eastern portion of the southern facade. Because of all of those features, we'd only be able to provide 1 shade tree, and the applicant would plan to pay into the tree bank for the remaining 5 trees. As it relates to the stormwater management of the site, obviously the building covers most of the site. We would plan to collect rainwater on the roof and in the garden area over here, and on the westerly portion walkway over here via drains, and then it would drain to a detention basin in the basement. We will plan to work with the the city engineering department for any stormwater management items that come up throughout the process. And then lastly, as Jennifer had previously mentioned with regard to lighting, we will be updating the lighting to include additional fixtures around the areas of the entrance and the garage entrance. That way no variance would be required for from a lighting perspective. Lastly, just want to say, again, we're going to continue to work with the engineering department. We had already met with them previously with regard to this application about a year ago now, and we'll continue to work with them to resolve any comments they have. And just want to say we're excited to work on this transformative project in the city. And with that, we'll pass it back over to Jennifer.
Thank you, Kyle. Madam Chair, I have no further questions for Mr. Goodwin.
Are there any questions for Mr. Goodwin from commissioners? So raise your hands. Commissioner Green, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I was curious to know if this is a part of the application where we'll talk about the affordable units or no? I guess it's a question for council.
It's Commissioner Good, I think our architect may get a little bit more into detail if your questions relate to where they're located in the building or some of those questions. Probably not an engineering question.
Okay, very well. I'll just wait for the architect. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Trafficante, did I see your hand raised?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Mr. Trafficante, you're still under oath?
Okay. Mr. Goodwin, regarding, I guess, your request for relief from providing two driveways, your site plan shows these two driveways less than 6 feet apart. I think 5 feet, 5.1. And
that's correct.
And could you clarify to the board the second garage door opening? The one on the left, we understand, is for access to the parking garage. The other garage door to the right of that?
Sure. Yeah, I can clarify that. So, like you said, the garage door on the west there, it accesses the parking garage, and then the garage door in the east is a loading space. So not only would that provide an access point for the refuse collection of the site, which would be enclosed within the building, it also would provide ability for residents to move in and out of the building. So they would be able to use that loading space for that purpose.
And in regards to using that loading space, that will require trucks, whether short box trucks, or I believe you could accommodate a 40-foot tractor trailer, right? In one of those?
With regard to the operation, I don't know that a large tractor trailer would be used in this case. I know that we have taken a look from a box truck perspective and feel that that's a sufficient driveway for that use.
I believe the architectural plans show like a 45-foot long space by, I think, either 10 or 12 foot wide. I don't know if you could tell us the height. Is it at least 14 foot high? Is that something for the architect?
That might be a question for the architect with the height, but yeah, we can continue to work with your office with regard to vehicle movements in and out of that driveway to make sure we're on the same page.
And Mr. Goodwin, as if we were to be approved as a condition of approval, would you provide a truck turning movement plan that we could share with both the engineer and the planning department?
Yeah, of course, we can provide a vehicle movement exhibit.
With that in mind, Mr. Goodwin, would it make more sense to have one common driveway serve both doors, especially since you're looking for a truck circulation plan where someone's going to have to back a truck up into that garage door on the right? I guess it doesn't make sense to have a 5-foot section of sidewalk between two driveways that are that wide. It would seem prudent, would it not, to have a common driveway serving both doorways to provide better access and more mobility, accessibility, especially to the loading dock areas, if for no other reason.
That's a good point. We can consider that. I think, like I said, we did take a look at this from a vehicle turning perspective and feel this is sufficient for the use. Like I said during testimony, I do think there's a bit of a concern to consolidate the access with the column between those two garage door openings, and we prefer to channelize vehicles into either entrance rather than to offer them, hitting that column there. So it's our it's our finding that the two separate curb cuts is preferred.
Well, the two separate curb cuts may be preferred to you and your client, but there's still no guarantee with two separate driveway aprons that the trucks entering and backing into that loading dock area may still not clip or hit that column. If
Yeah, and
that's
we
a
can.
concern, if that's a concern, could you put a board in the public right of way in front of that column to prevent that from happening? Something to prevent trucks or cars from backing into that and still provide a common driveway for both doorways?
So when we take a look at the three vehicle turning movements and you know, in working with your department, we can take a look at potentially adding a bollard if need be.
All right, but how about the other request about making a common driveway, being that they're so close apart? City code requires them to have at least, to have two driveways, you have to have at least frontage on two separate streets, which you do not have, and they have to be 100 feet apart. In this instance, you're less than 6 feet apart. It just seems prudent. Not to belabor the point, but it's my understanding engineering has jurisdiction in the public right of way, not the board. Would you or client be willing to work with us? If we make our case and prove to you that we feel a common driveway is acceptable, would your client be willing to accept that as a condition of approval?
We'll accept as a condition of approval, Madam Chair, to work with the Department of Engineering to the extent that this is a design waiver or even a variance. We believe we would make the proofs, but we don't foreclose the additional discussions between our client and the engineering department, as we always do during resolution compliance for the application, if the board were interested, were willing to grant our approval this evening.
But not to sidestep the issue, the bottom line is engineering has final say of location of driveways in the public right of way. When you get on private property, then we lose jurisdiction, but in the public right of way, engineering has final say. That being said, we would like a condition of approval that we meet with your traffic engineer and your truck circulation plans. If we find a common driveway serves to provide sufficient access to both door openings, would you be willing to compromise and provide us one common driveway, either 30 to 36 foot wide, that serves both door openings?
We definitely would be willing to work with your department, with the engineering department. If it's one long curb cut, if I can ask Mr. Trafficante, are you talking about removing the middle, what we had as a space between the two driveways?
The 5 feet you have between the two driveways, which is really, negligible. It's so small. And again, it would serve to behoove, especially if for the loading spaces you have on the right, it makes more sense to have one common driveway apron so that you don't have to worry about tractor trailers and snow plows clipping and driving over that raised curb, 6-inch curb in between the two driveway aprons. Provide a common driveway, ergo.
The short answer is we would be willing to accept that as a condition of approval.
All right. No further questions. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner James.
I think you mentioned that there was a green roof. Was that correct, or did I mishear that or read that?
No, that's not a component. It's a detention basin in the basement of the building.
Gotcha. Okay, so there is no green roof, but there are private terraces. Are you able to speak to the private terraces? Like how many units have the private terraces, or?
Mr. James, that's likely a better question for the architect, I think.
I defer.
He'll be coming up.
Not a problem. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Mazaway, who's your next witness?
Ms. Fleming, I think may have a question for us. She has her hand raised, Madam Chair.
I do. I just was hoping the engineer could provide some testimony regarding improvements to the right of way, specifically shade trees and the light pole that was depicted on the site plan and its compatibility with the rest of the street. Thank you.
Sure. So with regard to the shade trees, as I mentioned in my testimony, just because of conflicts, unfortunately, we weren't able to provide more than just the one shade tree. There's the curb cuts, there's the PSE and G vaults that are required for the building, and then there's an architectural feature here at the entrance of the building, all of which would preclude adding additional shade trees. So unfortunately, we just do have the one here. With regard to the area light, yeah, we just show the one area light and would plan to meet the requirements for lights in the right of way there.
But does your proposed light pole match the other light poles on that street is my question.
Yeah, we would plan to provide a light that matches the surrounding lights.
Yeah, and yeah, if I can, Ms. Fleming, if it doesn't match what we proposed, and there is a standard for what that light pole should be, then we'll follow that.
Thank you.
Okay, my next witness, if we're done with Mr. Goodwin, is John Korak.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Corr. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address and your affiliation to this application.
My name is John Korak, last name spelled C-O-R-A-K. I'm with Stonefield Engineering and Design, located at 92 Park Avenue in Rutherford, New Jersey. And I'm the traffic engineer on the project.
And Mr. Korak, if you could briefly give the board the benefit of your education and your license, and let us know whether your license is current, please.
Certainly, I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. My license is in good standing. I hold a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the College of New Jersey. I've prepared over 100 traffic studies for land development applications and been accepted before over 50 boards within the state.
Thank you.
You're accepted this evening. You may proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And John, you are familiar with or prepared the parking assessment that had been provided to the board as part of our application?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to get started?
Yeah, sure. So what our office prepared was a traffic and parking assessment to evaluate the potential traffic impacts of the proposed development, as well as the parking supply proposed for the development, on-site circulation, the drive aisles we were talking about previously. I'll first start off with the aerial of the subject site, and I'm not sure if we've marked this one yet. I apologize if we have or have not, whichever way it goes. 1 second. Let me actually click the share button for you. This is an aerial.
We have shared this. This is Exhibit A1.
Perfect. This is A1. I have another aerial, and I wasn't sure which one we had already, so appreciate that. So this is Exhibit A1 up again for you, and subject site being along Fulton Street, this two-way stretch, and then just off the aerial, it does become a one-way roadway down to Rector Street, where Rector then is a one-way headed westbound that ultimately ties into Broad Street at a signalized intersection. And so the street layout, the network that we have provided here makes it very simple for motorists that do park on the site. If they want to travel north on Broad Street, they come down Fulton and make the right turn. Similarly, if they're coming from the north on Broad Street, they can make the left turn directly into Fulton Street. Likewise, if you want to head south on Broad Street, you end up curling around onto Rector, using those signalized intersections to make the left turn onto Broad Street. So it'll controlled maneuvers in and out of the subject site and the roadway network in this area. The site currently is developed with a parking lot. It in its heyday certainly sees many cars a day parked here, traffic volumes coming in and out, especially during those peak hours. From a traffic perspective, a residential use is a fairly low traffic generator. In this case, we have 106 parking spaces. That's what's going to be the driver of vehicular traffic to and from the site. And those 106 vehicles end up being distributed throughout the day. There's not a single compact peak hour in residential uses where motorists leave the site or return to it. What happens with residential uses is that for those commuting peak periods, it's spread out over multiple hours in the morning, multiple hours in the evening, and then you have people who work from home, you have people who have work schedules that differ from a typical 9 to 5, and ultimately the volumes associated with the residential development are substantially lower than that of other types of, say, commercial uses or otherwise. So from a traffic perspective and with the roadway network and circulation that is provided here around the site, this development not anticipated to have any sort of substantial level of service or vehicular volume impact to the roadway network. And one of the key things about that is, okay, we have 106 parking spaces for 396 units, and ultimately the majority of the residents in this building are not going to own vehicles. We have a
an urban site that's very transit adjacent, very walkable with retail destinations, entertainment destinations in the nearby vicinity. Whole Foods is right in the vicinity. There's 3 light rail stations within 1,200 feet. And ultimately, this is an area that, as I switch to what I would like to mark as A3, that shows, you know, all the transit with the light rail stations and you know, bus stops in the area. This is a site that is well suited to attract a resident that doesn't own a vehicle, that doesn't you know, that you know, doesn't need to commute via car, and instead is going to walk to work, is going to take transit to work, is going to connect to Penn Station or Broad Street Station to commute to and from work. They're going to be using Whole Foods. They're going to be, you know, traveling up and down Broad Street as a pedestrian and not as a vehicle. And that's something that is encouraged in this type of urban environment, and reducing that parking supply reduces the vehicles, and ultimately puts more feet on the street. If I could go back, this is going to be called Exhibit A3. This is titled an Adjacent Features Aerial Exhibit. It's prepared by Stonefield Engineering, and it's dated, today's date, December 20th, 2021. And just to give the board a little bit of context on what this exhibit's showing, inside this this black circle is a 1,200-foot radius around the site, which is shown in yellow here. And then there's a number of light rail stations marked with the L's, number of bus stops marked with the bus stop symbol, and of course a number of options for parking outside the site, and should the need arise for it. So that's touching mostly on the traffic components of the project. Getting into the parking components, and I'll move off of this exhibit, and just to put the colorized rendering Exhibit A2 back up for the board's benefit. You know, again, residents choose to live in, you know, a new building in this urban area that has walkable and transit connectivity, because of the amenities that are offered both on and off site, and because they don't need to own a vehicle to fulfill their travel obligations, to be able to live their daily lives, whether it's for commuting, to get groceries, shopping, entertainment, other travel. And so with respect to the parking requirement, we acknowledge, you know, that the site's located in the Living Downtown redevelopment plan area, which was adopted back in either 2008, 2009, and that has a parking requirement of 0.5 spaces per bedroom. The site's also located within 1,200 feet of multiple light rail stations. And so in the city's ordinance, which was actually passed in 2014, you know, there is no parking required for these developments that are within 1,200 feet of the light rail station. So we're balancing 2 parking requirements here, and ultimately, you know, for a site like this within 1,200 feet, you know, those projects really help strengthen the transit node of light rail stations. They provide better density, which is a benefit towards transit, lessen the automobile impacts overall, and create stronger neighborhoods near, you know, near those transit areas. And although we do have a parking variance for the site because of the older redevelopment plan versus the newer ordinance, you know, the facilities in the vicinity of the area and the benefits to the community certainly allow for a reduced parking amount as compared to the outright requirement. So in weighing those 2 requirements, we ultimately somewhat split it down the middle, right? With the 220 that are required, we're providing 106 parking spaces, which is more than sufficient to accommodate this parking demand, given all the transit connectivity, given the walkability on Broad Street. Ultimately, this parking is right size for this development. It's sufficient to support the tenants that do have a car, but ultimately the majority of the tenants here at the site are not going to have a vehicle on the site itself. And you know, the reduction in car ownership is certainly a benefit for the uses in the surrounding vicinity, you know, as it relates to traffic impacts, parking impacts, community impacts, et cetera. So with that, you know, that would conclude my testimony in the and I think that the board could feel comfortable granting a parking variance based on where the site's located, the type of building this is and you know, the parking that we do provide for the few residents that would like to have a vehicle on site.
Thank you, John. Madam Chair, I don't have no more questions for Mr. Korak.
Thank you. Commissioners, anyone have any questions with regards to Mr. Korak's testimony? Ms. Shindy, can you see any raised hands?
So
I
it's
see.
Mr. Applicant that has question. He has his hand raised.
Mr. Trafficante?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Korak, do I need to be sworn in again?
Nope, you're good.
All right. Mr. Korak, did you have an opportunity to read the memo from our traffic engineer, Mr. Matthew Ina, dated December 13th, 2021?
Don't know that I've seen that particular letter, have I?
It was appended to the engineer's
Oh,
report,
okay.
Mr. Korak. It was the
Then
last
I
2
have.
pages.
Okay, then I have. I apologize.
All right. All right. So fair to say, so you've read it? You looked at it? You've seen it already? Fair to say?
Mhm.
All right. All right. One point of concern or for note for clarity, the application noted 388 units, but the plans and the parking study notes 396 dwelling units. For the record, which is it? 396?
396 units. And Mr. Berger actually testified to that. Yes.
Thank you. All right. Third item. Based on the total parking spaces provided in the parking supply summary, page 6 of the traffic impact study, maximum number of spaces found on site and within the public right of way was 135 spaces, which leads a deficiency of at least 89 off-site parking spaces. Applicant shall provide testimony to the board as to whether or not they investigated the option of leasing these 89 missing parking spaces within an adjoining existing parking lot located within 300 feet of the subject site. Mr. Korak, did your office look into that option?
I'll pull back on the screen again. So at this point, a specific lease hasn't been outlined, but I do note that we, or the applicant, has control of the parking that is across the street as well as the parking that surrounds the site. And I think that should the need for additional parking be there, should there be a demand from the residents, which I don't anticipate that there would be beyond the 106 on the site, but we do have that overflow and that ability to accommodate those spaces within those parking areas.
The traffic impact study noted that the total number of available parking spaces would be 135. 106 of those would be on site. The other, I guess, what would be 29 would be in the public right of way. How would you assume, ownership of spaces in the public right of way?
So yeah, the public right of way portion, this was to give the board an idea of the on-street parking that is available on the streets itself, on Fulton or on Rector, or some of the surrounding streets that you could walk to from the site. Looking specifically at, say, the lot that's directly across the street, or the parking areas that are surrounding the site. Those are not part of those 29 spaces. Those are additional parking areas not included in the study that could be used in the event of an overflow that would be worked out with our applicant.
As a condition of approval, would your client be willing to consider as a condition of approval, should there be a demand for additional parking by the tenants? Would your client be willing to provide those 89 missing parking spaces?
Randy, thank you very much.
I would defer that to our applicant, our attorney.
Yeah. Well, what I would say to that is, if the need arises for our tenants to have spaces outside of the 106 that are available in the garage, then we would consider agreements with the surrounding parking lot owners, again, who are part of the ownership of this development entity.
Is that a yes?
But I guess, what are you asking? Are you asking us?
I'm asking.
Wait, let me finish my thought, please.
All right, all right.
We have a variance request to allow us to have 106 spaces, and we think we will meet the proofs for that variance. In order for this building to be successful, we want tenants to want to be here. So if there's a need for parking that's not addressed with the 106 parking spaces, then we're going to address that, because as a practical matter, we want people to want to live in this building. So I don't know if that answers it, but
in an attempt to guarantee that the parking is provided on an as-needed basis, I would say for some period of time, maybe within 12 months of final CO of the entire building, should there be a demand by the tenants for more parking, your client will be agreeable to provide a parking, since he does own the parking lot surrounding the
yes,
property.
yes,
So that's a yes?
that's a yes.
All right, all right. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Traficante.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner James.
Yeah, I just needed some clarity. So, and this for the city's engineer, Traficante. So I heard him give testimony on, I guess, a traffic study by the city. Is that accurate?
Mr. James, there was 2 pages as part of the engineer's memorandum.
Okay.
In my packet, it was the last 2 pages, and it was from Matthew Ana, dated December 13th.
Okay, and it states how many parking spaces are needed per the city?
It stated that there was a deficiency of 89 parking spaces.
Okay, does that take in consideration the individuals who commute to work in that particular area and so forth? Like, I'm just trying to get some more understanding of exactly, you know, the surface parking lots and how much availability there is existing in conjunction with the, you know, commercial spaces in the area.
Well,
and I'm not clear, and I guess, you know, I know Traficante mentioned it and brought it up, but, you know, I haven't seen that in our planning report, but I just wasn't clear on exactly, you know, in terms of, you know, the correlation between the residential component versus the commercial versus the commercial units in the additional areas, you know, so.
What, as the attorney for the applicant, what I can say is, again, we believe that we're providing sufficient parking. This is a transit-oriented development, a true one. We're within 1,000 feet of multiple light rail stations and multiple bus routes. We believe that our typical tenant is going to be likely not have a car, but if the need arises, we're going to want tenants to want to live in this building. So, and the good thing is that part of our ownership entity has control of multiple parking spaces in very close proximity to this. So while we believe we can make the proofs for this variance, we also think that if there's a need for parking, we can provide it.
Do you know how many existing surface parking spaces you have currently, like to supplement?
Directly across the street on Fulton, there's a 40 space parking lot. And then adjacent to, which is actually, you can see in the aerial that we have, there is a commercial lot. And I apologize, I do not know how many spaces are in there. I may have to recall Mr. Berger to let us know how many parking spaces are in there. But there are, I don't have that in my notes, apologies.
It's a valet system with also as stackers, so, you know,
Yeah, we have 175 spaces in that parking lot around the site.
Gotcha, okay.
And actually 50 across the street on Fulton Street.
Okay, and I'm assuming that's more than enough, including those individuals who commute to the various commercial businesses there.
Yes, we think 106 is enough, but if more tenants want parking spaces, then we'll put them right across the street on Fulton Street, because we want them to rent the apartments. I mean, the parking spaces aren't free. They'll pay for the parking space in the garage. They'll pay for the parking spot across the street. So if there's a desire, if there's a need, and that helps us to rent the apartments, then we'll certainly use that the parking across the street. Right now, the parking lot across the street as of COVID is actually closed.
Right.
But we'll reopen it and hopefully soon when COVID leaves us. But those are rented for daily parkers. So if there's a need for the monthly tenants for the park, we'll have a gate system with a card, an access card, and we'll use that lot instead of for the public, what it's used now, we'll use it just for the apartment house tenants.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Boo. There any other questions from any of the commissioners? Lee Fleming, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. I would like to say something like more for clarity and just generalness, but then I also do have a question that is still related to the parking. So I know that I'm here for the board, and that's also why I do want to provide this clarity. This redevelopment plan was adopted prior to the city's ordinance. So because it's in a redevelopment area, if a redevelopment plan addresses something, then you have to go with the redevelopment plan. Otherwise, the city ordinance prevails. In this case, the redevelopment plan is older than the city ordinance, where then the city kind of made a policy decision through its land use ordinance about parking. So this is a very long way of me saying they are technically required a variance because they're in this redevelopment area that predates the ordinance. If they were not in this redevelopment area, they would just be held to the within 1,200 feet, and they would actually not be required to provide parking. And when we were making our report, we even like double checked the years of the ordinance and also verified with the way the redevelopment law and municipal land use law works that they are technically required a variance, which is why we called it out. But this is a very transit rich area. And as I said, if the redevelopment plan wasn't written before, because it's unlikely that then the city was going to go back and check every single redevelopment plan to see if this inconsistency occurred. And obviously, I'm not speaking on behalf of the city. I'm just speaking in terms of what's practical. I think that's what went on, since the city ordinance specifically states that if you're within 1,200 feet of public transit, that you're not required to provide parking. That being said, I do have a question about the parking. Because there's an area labeled public parking vestibule or public vestibule within the parking garage. So I guess my question then is this going to be available to the public? Just because if so, then your variance relief needs to be modified regarding what you are not meeting.
And John, is this a question for you? Otherwise, we can defer this to our architect. We did see this comment from Higher Gruel. So you let me know if this is not a question for you. I believe our architect Carlos will respond to this.
I would defer that to the architect. Yes.
Okay, so if I could ask Ms. Fleming if we can just hold that question until our architect comes on. Who's coming up next?
That works for me.
All right. So I don't see any other questions. Ms. Mazaway, who's your next witness?
Thank you. Carlos Cardoso.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name, your address, and your affiliation to this application.
My name is Carlos Cardoso, C-A-R-D-O-S-O. I'm a partner at Buyer Blindebell Architects. I've been practicing architecture for 29 years, 26 with the current firm that I'm in, the last 11 years as a partner. My specialty is in high-rise residential construction, affordable housing as well. And we reside at 120 Broadway in New York City.
Thank you, Carlos. Are you a licensed professional architect in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am. I went to the City College of New York, got my bachelor's degree in architecture there. I'm licensed in New Jersey, New York, and Florida.
And is your license current?
Yes, it is, and in good standing.
Thank you.
All right, you're accepted by the board.
Okay.
Thank you. Let me share my screen, and hopefully this is the fun part. Give me 1 second here, and let me know if everyone can see the screen.
Yes, we can.
Great. Some of the material here has already been covered, so I will not repeat myself unless the commissioners decide to have further questions. But I will go through this. I think we just spoke to this about the proximity regarding to transit zones within our requirements for parking. So I'm not going to go through this again. I think you all have that. Oops, the mouse is a little too quick here. This is the site plan, which John has gone through it already. There's a rooftop plan here as well. I will get into this and we will get into design pretty quickly.
It's after 9 o'clock. No
The
more
next-
back to bed.
Okay. The next one here is a section of the building to put into context what's happening on Fulton Street here. Our building borders on Fulton Street. It basically is an L shape that you'll see in plans. But the idea here, it's a double loaded corridor. The setbacks that we have once we hit the height of 65 or so feet pushes the building further back. And we actually tuck away and hide the parking spaces that we were just talking about. Someone mentioned how many units we have. We do have 396 units. And yes, we do have 20% of them are affordable. Actually, 80 units are affordable. I'm going to skip through these elevations because we have colored renderings, which I'm sure you all would rather see, and jump into the plans and provide some clarity to what's going on. So why don't we start working our way? This is westbound here, Fulton Street's at the bottom of the page, Lombardi or the north side's to the top, and to the east, Passaic River is here to our right. Our entry is a grand entry with a canopy that we've designed to provide a beacon of light to really pull people into our building and actually provide a lot of light and safety. Quite a nice lobby. There is retail spaces right here. There was a lot of discussion about the two curb cuts or parking areas. To the left here, to the west side is, as John explained, or Kyle, the ramp that leads to the parking garages, the multi-level. And yes, to the right of that is the loading dock. And yes, one of the trucks is 45 foot deep and one is 22. Reason for that was we felt it would be prudent. There is 396 units. There will be a lot of garbage in this building and trash to be overhauled. It is currently kept in the building. It is brought up through elevators, through this loading dock. So there will be no debris on the street, which I think would be quite not a very nice sight. So private hauling comes in, they can pull in, take the garbage and haul out, as well as the smaller side for box trucks, for move-ins. 396 units is quite a number of units. You will probably be active in move-ins and move-outs. So that's accommodated so that there is no parking on the street, tying up the street. The rest here on this first plan is a green space on the adjacent site right here that we provided, which gives a lot of light to the lobby. There is a communal laundry area, although each unit does have their own washer and dryer. This is more set for large loads, which sometimes those washing machines cannot accommodate. They can come down here and do their laundry, and it's available to everyone. These next levels are basically the parking spaces that you see here. And then we get to the second floor here, again, parking in the back. The units are towards Fulton Street and towards the east. The unit mix is comprised of studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. And again, 20% of those units are affordable and evenly, equitably distributed throughout the building. We then get to the 3rd floor, same thing pretty much. And on the 4th floor is where we have a really nice open space. Let's call it a terraced area, garden area. It's an amenity space. There is some private terraces here for these units, but it's available to the entire unit members, tenants. There is also a fitness center and some other amenities in this space. There are 4 elevators, by the way, that access the garage. And actually, if I back up, someone had a question, and sorry to jump back here. Oops. Come on, don't freeze on me right now. And here is this lobby that actually leads to the parking area. If a tenant does not want to come in and actually access the elevator through the inside elevators to their parking, they can't come through here. It could be some public parking if so desired, but this is really to give us access not only to the parking levels there, but also to the levels below the cellar. So this was a separate lobby that we had there as well. That's to answer that question. On the moving up the building, here's that garden area again on the 4th floor. And then the building sets back and really continues all the way from floors 5 and up. As it sets back, there is some green, another green space, another private terraces as it faces Fulton Street. Again, all the units are comprised as of 1s, 2s, and studios. There are stairs at the end of each corridor for safety, for life safety egress. Also, they're there to prevent the dead end corridor situation. There is obviously units that face the inner court, as we're calling it. Mechanical spaces that are in the inner court, there are some, is all enclosed. So it's not seen from the street or from the other side towards Lombardi Street. When we go further up, the floor plans are repetitive from floor 6 to 21st, as you see here, pretty much the same, nothing really changing there. When we get to the very top, that's the 22nd floor, you have mechanicals over to our west side here, which is all enclosed and within the proper distances set back from the street wall setback, as well as our property lines. And then there's something interesting at the very top, which is an amenity space to all called the Ballantyne Lounge. And that will lead us into the design. There will be beautiful views here for the eastern portion of the building, as well as the southern portion, outdoor space. And the reason we called it the Ballantyne Lounge, and this kind of leads to the design and what I think is really an exciting part here, is the following. Newark, with its huge tradition and obviously history, as a firm and with our client, we did not simply want to put up a new building. We wanted to be respectful of what has been in this neighborhood. And the Ballantyne Brewery has been here since the turn of the century. And although this is not a historical building, nor are we trying to historicize it, it is nice to bring the materiality and the history back. And what we did is we did just that. These buildings, these breweries were built with the old red brick, and we're bringing that back as the base, adding a little bit of a modern component with a metal panel, more like a gray Corten type steel that will go and follow up the tower of the building and sets back here as well. You see the entry here. That's really a prominent entry, the retail spaces, and yes, the 2 loading docks per se, the parking and the loading dock itself. This is the Fulton Street facade. On the eastern facade facing the Passaic River, the brick component continued, but creates a verticality element to break the massing, this bulkiness that we have to not seem so heavy of a building, more lighter. We decided to do that. Quite ample, large windows. And here's the best part, I think, and our client was really sensitive to this, is there are no PTACs. These are VRFs. And I think if you all know what PTACs looks like, they're pretty ugly, to be quite frank. They're just holes in the wall and they're not energy efficient. Our client has decided to not do that. This building exceeds the energy sustainability of ASHRAE 90.1 by 15%. So not only is this a new building, not only is this sustainable, it is very energy efficient. It's the way the future should be, not only for every municipality, but also obviously for Newark. And I think this is something that I really like, and we could show you higher resolutions. On this particular component here of the wall, which is a solid wall, we decided to really pay homage to what was there. And that's basically, we will have an artistic wall. Right now we have the logo of the Ballantynes, but really it could be anything else that we're open to. But I thought an art piece would really be something that would really be great for the neighborhood. So client also decided and worked with us to do that. And at the very top, as you see, is the Ballantyne Lounge. And the reason for that is, again, we worked off the Ballantyne component that was here that had this huge history. And really, it's really an open space for the tenants to gather up there. and have some great views, some great outdoor areas, barbecues, whatnot. And we were sensitive. There is a lot of mechanical and it's all enclosed. So it's not a sore eyes, you know, to anyone to see. It's quickly here denoted. This is facing here to the left of the page, north. In other words, that adjacent parking lot to the north that John spoke about. Notice that we have cladded our parking so it's not visible. Those 3 parking layers that would be, it's really hidden away. On top, here's that green space. This car parking you see here is the parking adjacent to us to the north. So there's a green space, or the inner court as we call it. And you also see here, obviously, all the windows, quite ample light to all the units. And then here is a solid wall because this is our stair bulkhead and the ends of the units. It's our property line, to be quite frank. And so we did some undulations to the facade so it's not so flat. This facade here is the west, and I think this is really an important piece to understand because this grayed out area is only 8 feet away from our adjacent building, which Mr. Berger owns as well. It's his office building. So it's about 8 feet from the property line, a little bit further from his building. So obviously there would be no windows there. It's basically a lot line condition when you have 2 abutting buildings. This just happens to have an alleyway or an adjacency. So there are no windows there. This really brings into play, and I'm going to try to do this without losing this on the screen. And there it goes. And here's more of the rendering. There is the building Mr. Berger owns to the west, and you can see the proximity to it, that L-shaped component. Here's our entry, as you see here, a really ample canopy during inclement weather, obviously, and it's well lit, which we think is really important, along with the retail space. So it really does, not only does this brick component or this base really work well within the scale of the adjacent opposite townhouses across from us, but it also creates a more soothing component given that it's a brick facade. This pullback here that you see here, which is a continuation of the lobby and some green spaces within our property, and then obviously the tower, we should say, that continues all the way up. This is more of that view. There's that art wall, let's call it, a little bit of a setback here. This is currently parking right now to the east of us, and obviously the tower as it rises up. This is more from the parking area, kind of giving you this view of what's transpiring here. Let me just shrink this a little bit. And here is some views of that canopy entrance. So you get a sense of scale and sensibility, has a little bit of an industrial motif to it. Some signage, as you see here, for the retail space, and really kind of brings the scale down to what's across the street. And this not only gives you a head-on shot view of our entry, quite large, will be very well lit, but also the opening's quite large for the units themselves, right? And no P-tax, which I think is great. This basically ends the presentation
Carlos,
I have.
Yeah, and Carlos, on the issue of the P-tax,
Yes.
we have a variance for transparency.
Yes.
And is it in part, the variance is in part because of the fact that the building is energy efficient? Is that accurate?
Yes, right now our fenestrations, our glazing is at 40%, which is pretty high. And in order to meet that, it was a balance of meeting what's called the National Green Building Society, which we want for sustainability. And that is also 15% more energy efficient than ASHRAE 90.1. So that's what was a balance there. But also the fact that we made the windows as open or the openings as large as we could without getting to a point where it became a detriment to the energy efficiency. So that was the balance. So in short, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have no further questions, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair. Okay. Commissioner Good.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to first start off by commending of the development team and Mr. Berger. This is a phenomenal project. I'm excited to hear about the 20% commitment to affordable housing. I wish that all of our developers met this moment in the same way. I was excited to know if you guys had additionally had any LEED certifications on this project.
We did not seek LEED, Commissioner Good. What we seeked was the National Green Building Society component.
Okay, that's very good. And additionally, the base coverage area ratio for the property is almost 100, or where are we at on that?
I'm sorry, say that again.
The BCR for the property, you're on what, like, you're more than 50% for sure for this lot, right?
Yes, but yes, for the lower floors, but on the actual tower itself, as you see here.
Right.
Right, it's less.
No, I'm glad. This is a phenomenal project. I'm excited for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner James, no?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the terraces. I know you mentioned there were several units that had terraces. Could you specify how many? Was it more than, I think it was 3 that was listed in your plans, or?
Right now on Fulton Street here, as I'm showing it, we have 9, if I'm not wrong, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then on the 4th floor here, there's these other units. So it's 1, 2, 3. So another 3, so 12 in total.
Okay, and these are private terraces that only the residents of that unit have access to, correct?
Correct.
Okay, but the roof is a common space for everyone.
Public, correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
As is this 4th floor?
4th floor.
There's a 4th floor amenity as well.
And the 22nd floor.
Okay, and that's all common area, but that's not a green roof. None of these roofs are green roofs per se, correct?
They're not green roofs, but they are landscaped.
Okay.
There's trees. We have a landscaping component that our landscape architect worked on with planters, as you see here, and other spaces.
Okay, thanks. And my last question, just the aesthetic wise, I was very impressed with the brick facade. It looks similar to the Kruger Scott Mansion, which was also a former, brewery, as you all know. But what is above that? Is that like, what type of material is that? And what I'm trying to see exactly what color is that.
It's a metal panel. It's an insulated metal panel, and we're still looking through the colors to get in this warm gray component with a black surround window, and we're still studying the samples on that.
Okay, so it is, because it looks like a grayish, like it complements the brick well, but I really wasn't clear exactly what color depicted on this rendering. So okay.
Right, but you're correct.
Okay, all right, great. Now looks, I concur with Commissioner Good. This is a phenomenal project. It aesthetically looks phenomenal, and considering that it's around the corner from my former alma mater, Science High School, I'm impressed that we're getting rid of all these surface parking lots and finally doing some development. So I commend you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Are there any other hands raised?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment. I do think this is a phenomenal project also. It looks really good. I don't know, I don't recall whether you spoke about the signage down the bottom or any signage on the building.
There would be signage on the canopy here, basically the address of the building. And then as far as the signage for the retail space, we dedicated space for it. We have not created any sort of signage till a tenant is in.
Right, and Commissioner Jordan, I can speak to that too. As tenants come in, obviously to the extent that their signage would require a variance, they'd have to come back at that point for that. But for now, because we don't know who our who our tenants would be in those commercial spaces, we don't have signs. But we're showing signs on the plans as compliant, signs that would be size compliant with the city's ordinance.
And it would be only on this side of the building?
Correct.
That's correct. But the brick on the eastern facing wall is like a stamped brick or I don't know if that's the right.
Yes.
shade,
It's a
Carlos.
recycled brick. It's an old used brick, so it looks more, has the character of an older building, not a new building.
Okay, great, great. Thank you.
You're
Very
welcome.
nice presentation also.
Thank you.
All right. Attorney Mazaway, is that complete your testimony, or you have any other professionals?
I do have Mr. McDonough to testify as to the few variances that we discussed.
Madam Chair, Charlie Trafficante has his hand raised.
All right, come on, Mr. Trafficante.
One question for Mr. Cardozo. In
Yes,
your
sir.
rendering, you show I guess a canopy across the front of the building. Can you
Yes.
tell us whether or not that encroaches into the public right of way? And if so, will that require an easement?
It does exceed into the public right of way, and it will need an easement.
As a condition of approval, would your client be willing to obtain an easement or at least provide?
Yes.
All right. No further questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, Mr. McDonough, you're up.
I'm right here, Madam Chair, and if the screen could just be yielded for a sec, I'll go very quickly.
There we go. Sorry.
Thanks, Carlos.
You're still under oath.
Yes, I am. And yes, I do. Take it away,
Wish it was
Jen.
always that easy.
Okay, Mr. McDonough, could you give us your planning testimony with regard to the variances that we've talked about this evening?
Sure, I'll be very brief here because the list of relief is actually, as it's evolved here, very brief as well. But a planner's job is to look at and evaluate how a project integrates with the neighborhood and with the policy statements that go around it as well. So I'll show you what you all know is our neighborhood here is downtown Newark, the largest and greatest downtown in all of New Jersey. It is rich in culture with the museum, with the entertainment, with the art center, with all of the great things that are down here. This wonderful diversity of land uses, a very transit-friendly area, an employment epicenter. And we're here with a plan that's called the Living Downtown Redevelopment Plan. And life is at the heart of the plan to bring people to the downtown, to celebrate and add to and contribute to that downtown, which is exactly what Mr. Berger and his organization have been doing here in the city for many, many years, 40 years now. And this is just another continuum in that contribution to the growth of the city. So this project here is in substantial compliance with the Living Downtown Redevelopment Plan in terms of the use, in terms of the overall project massing here, no relief related to the density, no relief related to the floor area, the height, the coverage, or the setbacks. This is going to be infill development that will clearly blend with the massing that's around it. This building is going to face the river. It's going to be another one of those skyline defining projects and a beautiful signature building that will contribute to add value and quality to the already beautiful skyline that's out there. Again, substantial compliance with the redevelopment plan and very, very minor relief, which has all been addressed by the witnesses before me. We've got 3 categories of transparency relief, which you just heard through Carlos's testimony, provides that excellent balance of voids and solids, and is really for energy efficiency and goes towards that planning goal here in the city for a sustainable city with green elements and the like, and that's exactly where that goes. Also, relief related to the insufficient shade trees. Our applicant is going to try to maximize the trees along the frontage to the extent practical, but where physically it falls short, they'll be mitigated by contribution to the tree fund. Those are the only 2 bundles of relief that the applicant needs related to the design. You've heard about relief related to the parking. I'll fall back on John Corrick's testimony. Again, that the clear policy here in the city, it's not only in your zoning ordinance, but it's in your master plan as well, your 2012 master plan, which came subsequent to the Living Downtown Redevelopment Plan, is to drive down parking ratios here in the downtown. That's exactly what this project does to, I'll say, celebrate and contribute to those transit amenities that are here in the city. So altogether, this application nicely knits with the neighborhood and with the plan and is certainly reconcilable under the C2 balancing, whereby the benefits of the application as a whole would substantially outweigh the detriments. The relief is minor here and certainly can be granted without causing any adverse impacts. You heard about some waivers as well related to the excessive driveway width, the excessive number of driveways. I think that's been well vetted as well by the engineers on both sides, the applicants and the cities. And we've struck a balance. We've landed in a good place where the site will function safely and efficiently and address Mr. Travicante's concerns in his report. That said, it's a very good application from a planning standpoint. It's good to put people here with the transit, with the river, with everything else. And I'll just, I guess, close with the sunset scene there and say this will be a very valuable and positive contribution to the area. Certainly meets the statutory criteria for approval, and approval is warranted. That's it, Jen.
Thank you, John. No further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. McDonough?
I'm sorry, I just have one more question. When do you anticipate this project to begin?
I think Miles will, Mr. Berger will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we hope to begin construction at towards the end of second quarter 2022.
That's correct. That's correct.
So we're talking June, July?
That's our hope. There obviously there are new state incentive programs that we'll be looking to apply for, and some of the timing will depend on when we can expect to get those approvals. But yes, it is our intention to begin this as soon as we have those in place.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from any of the other commissioners for this witness? All right, I don't see any hands.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Okay, Commissioner James.
Yeah, quick question. Has a name been decided for this property yet?
Well, right now it's 22 Fulton, which is the address.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments from panelists?
Yes, Commissioner Oliver.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that this project is mind-boggling, but it's interesting. And it's so interesting is I refuse to get even drowsy or sleepy, trying to wrap my whatever you want to call it around this. But God bless the ones that want to have their own is all I can say.
All right. All right, so at this time, we're going to take any questions or comments from the public.
So if anyone from the public has any questions or comments, please go to the bottom of your screen and press the raise hand feature. We'll give you a few moments. No questions at this time, Madam Chair.
All right, commissioners, I need a motion.
Motion moved.
Second.
Second.
Well, that was tight. How do we call that?
So is a motion made by Commissioner Purdy and seconded by Good?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Second by who?
He called it before you, sir.
I'll defer to former Chair
I
Oliver
appreciate it.
if he likes to be the second.
Commissioner Oliver, I'm putting your name down here. Okay, Commissioner Good.
Yes, enthusiastically, yes.
Of course. Commissioner Timmons.
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan.
Yes, absolutely.
Commissioner Purdy.
Yes.
Commissioner James.
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver.
Yes.
Madam Witcher.
Yes, your application has been approved. Thank you so very much and have a good evening.
Thank you and have a nice holiday. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Very
Happy
much.
holidays.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you.
All right. So what do we have next on the agenda, Mr. Beck?
Do we have minutes that we can do first, Pallavi?
Yes, we have the minutes. I had emailed you all the
Yes.
minutes from December 13th. I hope you all had a chance to review them. So if anybody would like to make a motion.
So move.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So move.
Okay, Commissioner Timmons, okay.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Purdy. Okay.
Thank you. We have 5 resolutions to be memorialized this evening. The first 2 were from the December 13th meeting, and that was CPB 21-84 and 21-91, which was a courtesy review. And then with 3 other resolutions from the December 6th meeting, CPB 21-80, CPB 21-25, and CPB-22. All those commissioners that voted affirmatively at the time to approve these applications were permitted to memorialize same, and the voting records will reflect same.
Aye.
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 I guess that is it.
What happened?
Right. The next meeting will be next year, January 3rd.
Wow. Next
There's no
year.
specials? I thought it was like
Oh,
a special.
no.
We're done with
December
specials.
24th.
No, I also shared the 2022 schedule with you all. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We have our agenda and I will share that soon. But that's it for tonight.
All right, everyone be well.
Thank
Can
you.
we
Good night,
adjourn?
everybody.
Happy
Have a
holiday.
great holiday.
Aye. Good
Is
night. Good
somebody-
night.
oh,
Send me your checks.
you're not
Hey,
making a
Jermaine, I gotta
motion
catch
to-
up with you.
Okay, all right, text me. Okay.
All
brother.
right.
All right, take
All
care.
right.
I don't get a check.
Merry Christmas.
Yes, you do.
All right. All right. Thank you, Leah. Happy holidays. All right, Commissioners.
Happy holidays.
All right. See you. Bye.